Your jaw tightens before you even read the message. Your phone buzzes again, a sharp needle in your pocket, and your stomach drops as if the floor tilted 2 degrees. On the ride to work, you notice sirens, the one angry horn, the news headline flaming in the corner of a screen. You miss the soft light on the building's windows, the child laughing 3 seats ahead, the subtle pride of being on time today. By noon, you're collecting slights like proof exhibits, filing them for later, feeling your shoulders crawl up toward your ears. Sound familiar? Here's the promise. You can retrain the part of your brain that spotlights threat to start spotlighting cues that move you forward. Not blind optimism, not motivational sugar, but a practical reset of your reticular activating system, the RAS, so your attention becomes a tool, not a trap. In the next hour, you learn the first switches, the feel of them in your hand, and the small actions that wake up calm, clarity, and momentum on command. Here is the quiet truth you were never taught in school. Your nervous system evolved to overvalue bad news because bad news kept your ancestors alive. That bias runs through the RAS, the slim network in your brainstem that acts like the bouncer of attention. The loudest, most emotionally charged stimuli get in first. When your amygdala flares, tight chest, hot face, the bouncer thinks danger is on stage and drags a spotlight to match. This is useful when there's a snake in the tall grass. It is harmful when the snake is a colleague's curt email, a delayed payment, a glance you interpret as judgment. Your day becomes a museum of threat exhibits, and every frame you hang shapes the next one. Neuroplasticity means whatever you repeatedly attend to wires faster. Attend to threat all day, your RAS becomes a siren. Attend to forward signals, your RAS becomes a guide dog. Take one slow inhale through your nose right now. 4 counts in, hold for 4, let it out for 6. Notice the air is cooler on the way in and warmer on the way out. Feel your ribs widen, then soften. That breath is not decoration. It shunts blood back toward your prefrontal cortex, the part that plans, reasons, and chooses. You're stealing the spotlight back from the amygdala. While your body settles, you'll learn your first protocol to talk to the bouncer directly. Call it the N3. Notice, name nudge. It's as simple as it sounds and precise enough to rewire habit loops. Notice is the bell. You hear the ping of a negative cue. Tight chest, fast thoughts, the urge to scroll the worst. Name is the label. You say, I'm having the thought that I'm behind, or there's an alarm in my body. That phrasing matters. It creates a gap between you and the swirl. Nudge is the smallest wise action that tilts your RAS toward what helps. You ask one better question. You take one calming breath cycle. You scan for one useful cue in the room. Each time you run N3, you shift what your attention expects to find. The bouncer takes notes. Feel your feet on the floor. Heels, arches, toes. The pressure is real, not imagined. Let your shoulders hang 1 centimeter lower than you think you can. When you soften the muscle armor, your RAS relaxes its trigger finger. It stops chasing every shadow. A story. In a fluorescent conference room, Maya looked at the quarterly chart and felt heat in her face. The numbers were red, the kind of red that makes your stomach thump. Her mind jumped to a story she's carried since school. If it's not perfect, you're in trouble. The bouncer yanked the spotlight to the one failing metric and painted the rest of her work in darkness. She almost snapped at her teammate. Instead, she recognized the telltale buzz in her temples. She whispered, "Notice," under her breath. She named it. I'm having the thought that we're doomed. Then she nudged, 1-4-4-6 breath, one question. What is one variable we controlled well this quarter? Her teammate answered, retention. The chart was red in growth, but retention was the highest it had been in a year. Maya's RAS offered a countersignal, widened its frame. She asked a second question. What kept retention high? They found 3 practices to amplify next sprint. After the meeting, no fireworks, just a steady warmth in her chest where panic used to flare. That's RAS training in the wild. Here's what the brain science is doing behind the curtain. The moment you name your experience, language networks quiet limbic fire by roughly the same logic as labeling a map calms a traveler. It gives you coordinates. The RAS is tuned by goals and repeated queries. Ask, what's wrong with me? And it fetches a buffet of wrong. Ask, what is one cue that moves me forward? And it begins to scan for it. Over a week, this becomes a background process. After a month, you don't have to force it. The bouncer knows your guest list. Let's sharpen the nudging piece with a second name tool, the bright spot scan. It is not positive thinking. It is precise attention to useful evidence. After you run notice and name, you ask 3 quiet questions. What is working, however small? What helps if I do it again? What's the next smallest step I can take in 2 minutes? You keep the step small on purpose because the RAS privileges near-term, concrete signals. When you repeat this scan daily, you manufacture proof for your brain that forward movement exists even alongside stress. That proof is what reweights your filter. Listen for the faint sounds around you. Maybe there's a humming fridge, a distant car, the whisper of your own breath. Let the sounds arrive without chasing them. Feel the temperature on your skin. Notice where fabric touches your forearms, where air brushes your face. Sensory anchors are the handles on the present moment. Grab one and your attention has leverage. Try the micro practice now. Place your phone face down, as if you were setting a cup you don't want to spill. Inhale for 4, hold 4, exhale for 6, twice. Whisper, notice. Let one thought rise. It might be, I'm behind, or they don't respect me. Say, I'm having the thought that, and finish it. That wording pulls the thought out of your identity. Ask, what is one cue that moves me forward? Look around. The cue could be the completed task in your notes, the quiet message you can send, the glass of water that settles your system. Pick one. Do it in under 2 minutes. Feel the shift in your chest, the breath smoothing out, the ground under your feet getting heavier in a good way. You just taught your RAS a new trick. When stress pings, you look for leverage, not for proof of doom. This is not about ignoring danger. It's about correcting the weight your mind gives to danger by default. The negativity bias will still inform you if something truly needs attention. You're not amputating a safety feature. You are updating your operating system so the home screen shows tools, not alarms. Without this recalibration, you waste hours in imaginary fights, rehearse losses that never arrive, and miss the handholds built into your day. With it, you make steady contact with reality and choose better under pressure. On your next commute, test the bright spot scan with a twist. Before you open your inbox, set a 2-sentence intention. What you value today and one move you'll make even if everything else goes sideways. Maybe it's clarity and you'll ask 2 precise questions in each meeting. Maybe it's kindness and you'll respond to your own mistakes the way you'd talk to a friend. Write the sentences in a notes app, nothing fancy. The RAS dilates around held intentions. It starts tagging anything that rhymes with your aim. Later, when a snide comment lands, the bouncer will still look up, but you'll have a second bouncer reading your intention at the door. If you want proof this shifts identity, notice the micro voice in you that says, "I'm not the kind of person who can stay calm." That voice is just learned metadata. You can let it talk and still choose differently. Each time you run N3, the sentence edits itself. Over weeks, "I'm not the kind of person who" becomes "I am the person who notices and nudges." This is identity as practice, not biography. You are the awareness, not the emotion, and your awareness can learn. Taste the air in your mouth for a second, the hint of coffee or toothpaste or nothing at all. Feel the slight coolness along your nostrils. Let your gaze soften so your peripheral vision widens by 5 degrees. When your visual field widens, your nervous system believes it has options. Tunnel vision is a body story of threat. Soft eyes tell a different story. There is another layer to the bright spot scan that accelerates rewiring, the gratitude in shadow move. When something grates, traffic, delay, a harsh tone, you look for the grain of usefulness inside it, not to excuse bad behavior, but to remind your RAS that even hard textures can provide traction. The delay gives you 5 minutes to rehearse the first sentence of your ask. The harsh tone reveals a boundary you can set clearly. You're training your attention to squeeze momentum out of friction. Over time, the bouncer stops reacting to every rough edge and starts asking, "Where's the handle?" Back to Maya. A week after the red chart meeting, she walked into a room already buzzing with what-ifs. She felt the first wave in her chest, the old heat. She ran N3 in under 30 seconds. Notice, name, nudge. Then she added the bright spot scan and the gratitude and shadow twist. The late client that morning had forced her to write a crisp 1-paragraph update. It turned out to be the clearest message she'd written all quarter. That evidence gave her body a different story. You can make clarity under pressure. She spoke slower. Her teammate mirrored the pace. The room followed. When she walked out, her neck felt loose and her tongue wasn't dry. The numbers were still red in places. But the day didn't feel like a verdict. It felt like a lab. Your lab starts now. Tonight, when you're brushing your teeth, run a 1-minute RAS tune. Stand with your feet hip width, feel the floor. Breathe 4-4-6 twice. Whisper, notice. Name one recurring thought that tends to hook you at night. Then ask for one forward cue you can execute before bed or right after you wake. It might be laying out your clothes, cueing a playlist, drafting the first line of a difficult message, or placing a book on your pillow instead of your phone. Do it. When your head touches the pillow, say, "I trained today." Let the phrase land in your body the way a warm blanket settles across your shoulders. The bouncer will remember in the morning. As you practice, keep this anchor close. Your attention is valuable. Each minute is an investment in a pattern. You wouldn't hand your wallet to the loudest person near you. Don't hand your focus to the loudest thought. The noise will still exist. The weather in the mind will still shift. But you are building the sanctuary room, the clear, quiet space behind your eyes where you decide what matters, where you invite the next wise action inside. Every breath, every name, every nudge is a stone in that room. Soon the room becomes your default address. Feel for the edge of your seat beneath your thighs. Let your jaw unclench. Put the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth to soften your throat. Take one more long exhale until your stomach draws in slightly. Ask the question your RAS craves. What is one cue that moves me forward in the next 2 minutes? Let the answer be ordinary. Ordinary is how change becomes permanent. You don't have to fight your brain. You teach it gently and consistently where to look, and it learns. You learn to pull your attention back with notice, name, nudge. And you felt the first shift when you ran the bright spot scan. Now you'll move from quick rescues to quiet design. The difference is simple. In a rescue, you're grabbing the steering wheel during a skid. In design, you're aligning the tires before you even hit the curve. The RAS is obedient to what you repeat and what you label. Give it better labels in the morning, and it will return better evidence all day. Call this the RAS tagging ritual, or RTR for short. You pick 3 tags before the day begins. Not goals, not metrics, just 3 words that describe how you'll move. Verbs or qualities that your nervous system can feel. Calm, curious, precise. Or steady, generous, direct. You write them in one line at the top of a page or on the lock screen of your phone, and you rehearse them once with your breath. Inhale to the first tag, hold on the second. Exhale on the third. Each repetition is a primer, like setting the autofocus on a camera. The science is straightforward. Priming shifts what the RAS flags as relevant, and embodied rehearsal ties the words to interoception, which your brain trusts more than abstract slogans. When stress hits, your tags act like homing beacons. You don't have to invent a response. You tune to the words you already planted. Scan your body now. Notice where your palms meet your thighs. There's a quiet weight there you can lean into. Let your eyes soften and widen by a few degrees so you can sense the edges of the room. With a slow inhale, say your first tag in your mind. With the pause, say your second. With the exhale, say your third, longer than the others. Feel what changes in your chest when the word rides the breath. That's the ritual in miniature. A story, because stories teach faster than lectures. Jamal runs a service desk at a small airport. Mornings used to feel like a hailstorm. He'd step through the sliding doors, and his body would brace for complaints. His RAS was trained to hunt for conflict, so it found it everywhere. The sigh behind him in line, the employee whose badge clinked a little too loud, the static-laced announcement that sounded like bad news. One Monday, he tried RTR. He picked steady, curious, precise. He wrote the words on a small square of tape and stuck it to the base of his monitor. First call, a delayed flight. Voices rising on both ends. He felt the heat in his jaw, said steady, silently, and took one 4-4-6 breath. Then curious, and he asked the caller one specific question he wouldn't have asked before. What's the single update that would lower your stress by half right now? The caller paused, then said, "Just tell me if the crew has left the hotel." Jamal checked, answered precisely, and the tone dropped 2 notches. By noon, he'd run the same loop a dozen times. The day wasn't quiet, but it was navigable. His RAS, fed 3 tags since sunrise, started highlighting moments that matched them. At closing, he felt a pleasant heaviness in his shoulders, like after a long swim rather than a fight. Here's the mechanism that matters. Your brain makes predictions and then looks for confirmation. The RAS acts like a mail sorter that bundles anything labeled relevant and sends it to your conscious desk. Negativity bias slaps warning labels on a lot of envelopes. RTR adds another label, one that says, "Bring me anything that fits calm, curious, precise." Over time, The mix on your desk changes. You still see the problems, but you also see the handles. If a thought pipes up to mock this, 3 words can't change a day. Notice it, name it, and nudge anyway. The nudge is not to prove the thought wrong. It's to give your RAS a chance to gather counter evidence. The nervous system makes peace with what it can physically feel. When calm is tied to a longer exhale, curiosity to a head tilt and a question, precision to a clear next action, those words become body memories, not just ink on a page. Check in with your senses again. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect, then the closest, maybe a fan or a car rolling past, then the faint whisper of your own breath. Feel the fabric under your wrists and the coolness along your cheeks. These anchors are not woo. They are the toggles that reallocate attention from default alarms to chosen signals. Now you'll learn a second protocol to catch your stories before they grab the wheel. Call it the perspective triangle. In any sticky moment, you move through 3 vantage points: first person now, future mentor, and camera on the ceiling. First person now is where you feel heat, tightness, urgency. You honor it with one sentence out loud or in your head. Right now, I feel a squeeze in my chest and a rush to defend. Then you step to future mentor, the version of you 6 months ahead who has already solved this pattern once. You ask, what 2-sentence advice would they give me? You say it exactly as they would: warm, blunt, useful. Finally, you go to camera on the ceiling. Imagine a camera watching the whole scene with no opinions, just angles and movements. From that view, you describe what's happening like a calm sportscaster. 2 people at a table, voices rising, both want to be understood, one email on the screen with unclear timing. The triangle widens options. The amygdala respects vantage point shifts. It reads them as safety. Your prefrontal cortex comes back online with the oxygen and the distance. Stand up if you can and shift your weight from foot to foot. Feel how the floor doesn't move. Put one hand on the back of a chair. Sense the roughness the way you'd note bark on a tree. Take a breath and let your shoulders fall by a centimeter. Say, first person now. Then, future mentor. Then, camera. The names are levers. Pull them and your mind pivots. An evening scene will show you how this works under pressure. You're chopping vegetables, half thinking about a deadline. Your partner asks if you filed a form you promised to handle. You feel a spark, that old story. Why do they always assume I forgot? Ignite. First person. Now, I feel heat in my face and an urge to defend. Future mentor. Say the truth in one sentence and ask for the clarification you need. Keep your tone low. Camera on the ceiling. 2 adults cooking. 1 question asked. 1 person pausing to answer. You exhale for 6, lift your eyes and say, I haven't filed it yet. I plan to do it at 8. Is there a reason it needs to be earlier? Your partner says, oh, actually, tomorrow works. The spark dies. Your body registers that a different move was possible. The RAS adds this to its repertoire. When sparked, widen perspective, then act small and clear. You'll add 1 more tool to hold the emotional wave without getting swept. It's the 90-second weather rule. Emotions are body storms, chemical surges that often crest and shift within a minute and a half if you don't feed them new fuel. When you feel a surge, you name the weather. Anger storm, shame fog, anxiety gusts, and you decide to watch it for 90 seconds like you'd watch rain streak a window. During the watch, you keep your behavior simple. You breathe 4-4-6, you relax your jaw, You feel the chair under your thighs, and you refrain from sending the text, writing the email, or declaring the verdict. The rule is not suppression, it's escorting the chemistry through without handing it the microphone. After 90 seconds, you run either RTR to re-engage your tags or the perspective triangle to choose a move. Most surges soften enough for choice to return. Let your tongue rest on the roof of your mouth and see if your throat loosens. Rub your palms together and feel the warmth gather. Put one palm over your sternum, the other on your belly. Inhale to the top hand. Exhale until the lower hand dips. Whisper the word watch on your exhale. You are teaching your body that you can experience a wave without drowning. That lesson rewires your filter faster than any pep talk. A second story. Lena, a junior designer, received a Slack message from her manager. We need to talk about the mock-ups. No emoji, no context. Her chest went cold. Her RAS flashed a museum of old exhibits. The professor who said disappointing. The internship where feedback meant a layoff. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to explain everything. She caught herself. N3 first. Notice. Name. I'm having the thought that I'm in trouble. And then she applied the 90-second weather rule. She watched the coldness like fog rolling in. She let her jaw soften, counted her breath. 90 seconds later, she ran the triangle. Future mentor said, ask for specifics, assume ambiguity, not disaster. Camera view described a manager who might be slammed, typing fast. Lena messaged, sounds good. Which parts should I prep? Layout, color, or copy? The reply came back with 3 bullet points, none of which were catastrophic. When the call happened, she was steady. She even heard a bright spot. Your color choices are strong. Her body filed that too. The next time a bare message arrived, the RAS didn't automatically stamp it with doom. Between these protocols, you'll also shape your environment to keep your RAS honest. Visual clutter pulls attention like magnets. Clear surfaces act like calm breaths for your eyes. Create a tiny launch pad, a square foot of space on your desk with your tag words and one object that cues you to widen. Maybe a smooth stone, maybe a card with a question you like. Each time your gaze lands there, your filter widens by a degree. That micro-widening compounds across a day. Feel the air at the tip of your nose. On the inhale, there's a cool thread. On the exhale, a warmth. Let your shoulders drop, then drop again. Notice the weight of your clothing, the contour where fabric meets skin at your collarbone. The more precisely you can sense, the more precisely you can steer. At night, you'll close the loop with a signal-to-noise sweep. Take 2 minutes to narrate the day to yourself. First, you name 2 signals that moved you forward, moments where RTR, the triangle, or the 90-second rule shifted your path. Then you name 1 piece of noise that snagged you, doom scrolling, mind reading, over-personalizing, and how you might catch it earlier tomorrow. You don't scold, you annotate. The RAS loves annotated patterns. When it sees the same snag twice, it starts to flag it sooner. A small dawn practice cements the bias. On waking, before you scroll, sit on the edge of your bed, feel your feet, and run a 60-second RTR. Say your 3 tags with your breath. Then ask 1 triangle question in advance. If future mentor checked in at 3 p.m., what would they hope I did by then? Write down the smallest answer that fits on a sticky note. Place it where your hand will touch it around midday. That's not superstition, it's task anchoring. Your RAS will look for chances to fulfill what your hand expects to touch. When science pops up here, It's in service of what you can do, not what you can memorize. Your amygdala will still flinch at sharp stimuli. That's its job. But your prefrontal cortex is not a fragile flower. It's a strong climber that needs a trellis. RTR builds the trellis. The perspective triangle prunes the vines. The 90-second weather rule keeps the hose from flooding your garden. And each micro-practice gives the RAS consistent cues about what counts as relevant. Over weeks, the garden feels different because you are different in it. If you try these moves and an old narrative barges in, this is fake, this is forced. Notice the timing. The narrative often arrives right at the edge of growth. You don't argue with it. You run the weather rule, you shift perspective, you tag your breath, and you take the smallest wise action anyway. That's how identity changes, not by ceremony, but by 1,000 ordinary pivots that confirm a new story. You are the awareness, not the emotion. You are the curator, not the exhibits. Your job is to decide which pieces hang at eye level. Take one more beat to anchor this in your body. Press your feet into the floor for 3 seconds as if you're trying to leave a footprint. Release. Roll your shoulders forward and back. Slow. Let your gaze rest on something plain, a wall or a book spine, and notice 3 tiny details you've never seen. The nick in the paint, the texture of the paper, the subtle shift in color at the edge. That noticing is your RAS obeying new orders. It will obey again when your inbox opens, when someone you love uses a sharp tone, when a plan slides sideways. The orders are simple. Tag who you intend to be, change vantage point when you're hooked, ride the weather without handing it the wheel. Tonight, test the sweep. 2 signals, 1 noise, 1 adjustment. Tomorrow morning, run RTR out loud, and take the triangle for a spin once before lunch, even if nothing is on fire. You're not doing homework. You're building a sanctuary room with open windows and sturdy furniture. When the storm passes through, the room will stand. And when the light returns, and it will, you'll notice it faster because you trained your mind to look for what moves you forward. You've primed your days with tags, and you've learned to widen perspective when the spark hits. Now you'll redraw the map itself. Think of your attention like a city you've lived in, but only at street level. You know the noisy intersections and the alley where you always hurry. You also know the coffee shop you love, but somehow forget exists when you're stressed. Today you climb a rooftop and sketch the whole grid, so your RAS has a map that leads you to the right corners faster. When you can see the routes, you're no longer a passenger of mood. You become the planner of traffic. Call this trigger cartography. You're going to map the recurring cues that pull your filter toward threat. Tones, phrases, times of day, sensations. And you'll pair each with a forward signal on purpose. The pairing matters because the RAS learns by association. If a calendar reminder at 4 o'clock always means dread, your bouncer starts spotting dread earlier and earlier. If you stitch that reminder to a brief ritual of soft eyes and 1 precise question, your bouncer starts spotting the question instead. The science under the hood is simple enough to trust. Your hippocampus stores context with emotion, repeat a new context, and the memory updates. Your predictive brain says, when this doorframe shows up, we breathe and choose. Over time, the doorframe becomes less of a trap and more of a cue for the behavior you actually want. Before you sketch, anchor in your body. Feel the back of your chair supporting your ribs. Let your breath drip down the back of your throat like warm tea. Notice the temperature at your wrists where air touches skin. On your next exhale, let your shoulders hang as if a coat were settling on a hook. The quieter your muscles, the clearer your pencil. Here's how trigger cartography plays out in practice. You pick one slice of life, say, feedback at work. You remember the last time you got a terse message and your stomach clenched. You write the headline your mind flashed. They think I'm incompetent. Then you rewind 10 seconds and notice the micro cues you usually miss. The buzz in your temple, the shallower breath, the way your field of vision tunneled around one line of text. Now you draw a small arrow and pair the whole cluster with a forward signal you can train. 1, 4, 4, 6 breath. Then the future mentor question in a sentence. Then a request for specifics. You aren't building a script, you're building a route. The next time a terse message arrives, your body will still flinch, but your RAS, having seen the rote on paper, is more likely to light up the questions instead of the old verdict. Mapping earns you seconds, and seconds are where better lives are built. Sense your feet, heels, then balls, then toes. Shift a little weight to the left and feel the pressure change. Let your jaw unclench and rest the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth. With each breath, widen your peripheral vision by a thumb's width. That widening tells your midbrain there is space here. A story from a crowded Tuesday afternoon. Arun is a senior engineer who hates code reviews for the worst reason. They feel like a courtroom in his chest. The comment, "Can we simplify?" reads like you failed, even though he knows the team cares. His RAS learned that critique equals danger back in college when a lab partner rolled their eyes and joked about his over-engineered brain. Those smirks became exhibits in his museum. Last month, Arun tried trigger cartography. He mapped the moment his cursor hovered over the review tab, the way his breathing vanished, the way his shoulders pinched. He paired it with a route, simple enough to run on tired days. 2, 4, 4, 6 breaths, 1 triangle check, 1 question typed before any defense. Which function would give us the biggest win if we refactor first? On the next review, the old spark came. He felt heat gather under his cheekbones. He named it and followed his map. 90 seconds later, he typed the question. The reply surprised him. The extractor, not your parser. Your parser's elegant. His chest loosened. The comment wasn't a verdict. It was a spotlight pointing at leverage. He carried that sensation, a gentle heaviness in the back of his neck, a warm spread under his sternum, into the rest of the day. The map had worked because his body could follow it, even while the amygdala muttered. Let's add a second framework that turns your new maps into a motor. Call it the choice chain. A chain is a sequence you can run almost on autopilot. Anchor, question, tiny action, reward, record. You already know the first two pieces from N3 and the triangle. The motor comes from the tiny action and the reward, because your basal ganglia care about actions that end with a signal of completion. When you finish even a small step and mark it, your brain drips a little dopamine. Your RAS flags the context as valuable, and the next step becomes slightly more attractive. It's not about chasing pleasure. It's about teaching your attention. That forward motion feels like closure, not like endless effort. Run the chain 3 times in a morning, and your day feels stitched instead of shredded. Place a hand on your chest and feel the rise and fall. Hold the rise for a beat longer than usual. Then let the fall lengthen until your belly draws in. Rub your fingertips together and notice the faint sensation of tiny ridges sliding. That detail is a doorway. Step through it. The choice chain in the wild looks like this. You catch a jab of self-criticism as you open a doc. You anchor with a breath and the tag steady. You ask a precise question. What is the smallest chunk I can complete in 2 minutes that moves this forward? You act on that, usually something like writing a single opening sentence or listing 2 constraints. Then you give yourself a clean reward, not a scroll break disguised as a reward, but a small embodied signal. You check a box, you whisper, "Good." You roll your shoulders, you sip water like you're toasting a friend. Finally, you record 1 line in a running log. 2-minute chunk done at 9:08. The record becomes evidence, and evidence is currency in the brain. Tomorrow, when you hesitate, your RAS will remember the log and nudge you into the first 2 minutes without drama. If your inner cynic lifts an eyebrow, this is too basic. Notice that the cynic is defending the familiar, not the effective. Year after year, the nervous system chooses known discomfort over unknown ease because the former is predictable. The choice chain makes ease predictable by ritualizing it. Rituals are the nervous system's favorite technology. Open your senses again. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect. Maybe a muffled engine, a bird through glass, a neighbor's door. Now listen for the nearest, the faint rasp of your own breath. Feel the surface under your thighs, the line where fabric presses skin, the subtle warmth under your palms. Your body is a dashboard. You're just learning to read it. To accelerate the map and chain, there's a short drill I want in your pocket. Pulse and pen. You place 2 fingers lightly on the side of your neck or your wrist and feel your pulse for 1 slow breath. Then you write 1 sentence that begins with, "When X, I tend to Y, so I will Z." The variables are your trigger, your habit, and your new forward cue. When the calendar pops a late meeting, I tend to sigh and stew, so I will ask the shortest clarifying question and take 1 hallway lap. That sentence is a compression of trigger cartography and the choice chain in 13 words. You repeat the sentence once in your head and move. 2 minutes later, you check a box. The box matters. Without the box, your brain forgets you completed anything and keeps the day feeling like a chase. Another scene because life rarely offers a clean lab. Nadine, a nurse on the evening shift, had a patient's family member corner her with sharp questions. Her heart rate jumped. Her museum opened to the exhibit labeled, "You can never do enough." She had mapped this wing before, so she ran pulse and pen in her pocket, pressing 2 fingers to her wrist as she nodded. She felt 3 beats, then breathed and spoke from the triangle. "Right now I feel urgency. I want to get you the clearest path. If I answer 1 thing precisely, what lowers your stress most?" The man said softer, "Just tell me when the doctor rounds." She checked, answered, and wrote a 1-line log later at the nurse's station. When she sat down after midnight, the chair felt like a chair, not a judgment throne. That's the difference these tools make. The floor stops tilting. If the science piece comforts you, remember this thread. Predictive coding means your brain guesses what happens next, then updates the guess when reality contradicts it. If you never contradict the guess ossifies. When you run trigger cartography and the choice chain, you feed your brain repeated contradictions of the old map. No, that message is not a verdict. No, that look is not doom. Yes, the smallest step is allowed. Over time, the guess changes. The RAS switches from hunting for alarms to hunting for handles because you taught it handles exist. Neuroplasticity is not a theory in a book here. It's the felt experience of a morning that opens faster than last month's mornings. Stand, if you can, and shake your hands loose at your sides as if you were drying them without a towel. Feel the tingling in your fingers. Roll your neck gently, like you're drawing a small circle with your nose. Let your breath slow until your exhale ends on a soft sigh. These tiny shifts are proof that your state is adjustable in seconds. Your attention respects what your body proves. There's one more accelerator I like to weave into the map: contrast pairing. Every time you meet a familiar negative cue, you immediately look for the nearest neutral or positive cue in the same scene, and name both. Sharp tone, clear task. Long cue, time to rehearse first sentence. Delay, extra breath. The pairing trains your RAS to stop treating scenes as single-note tracks. Mixed signals are more honest than monochrome ones, and your brain calms when it can hold both. This isn't sugarcoating, it's sensory accuracy. The hallway is loud and your feet are on solid floor. The email is abrupt and your tags are steady, curious, precise. With practice, your sentences get shorter and your body learns to see handles faster. Warm your palms by rubbing them again and place one over your belly. Feel the rise greet your hand like a small wave. Let your eyes land on an ordinary object nearby and see 3 details you usually miss: the seam, the shadow line, the scuff. The details are invitations. Accept a few each hour, and your attention becomes more skillful than your old alarms. If you worry that all this focus on yourself will make you selfish, remember the quieter paradox: regulated people create safer rooms. When your RAS is trained to notice what moves you forward, you become better at noticing what moves others forward too. The same triangle that saves you from a snap can be used to ask a teammate a question they didn't know they needed. The same choice chain that gets you to the first 2 minutes of a task also gets you to the first 2 sentences of a difficult apology. This is not about self-absorption. It's about stewardship of the lens through which you meet everyone else. Tonight, you'll try a compact session. Set a timer for 6 minutes. Map one trigger from the last 24 hours with 3 sensory details and the headline thought it rode in on. Pair it with a forward signal and a 2-minute action you can complete the next time it appears. Then set a tiny reward and a place to record it. Slide the note into the edge of your wallet or tape it inside a cabinet you open daily. Tomorrow, when the cue shows up, run the route. When you mark it done, pause and let the satisfaction register in your body for 5 seconds, as if you were letting sunlight warm your forearms at a window. The pause is the glue. Without it, the brain shrugs and moves on. With it, the brain says, remember this. You're not trying to become a person who never feels a sting. You're becoming a person who notices the sting and recognizes the handle that sits an inch to the left. The handle is usually smaller than your mind thinks it should be. That's good news. Small handles are everywhere, and the more you grab them, the more your identity shifts from reactor to curator. You are the awareness, not the emotion. You are the planner on the rooftop, drawing routes that your feet can actually follow, and every step you take in this mapped city makes the city kinder to live in. Take one more slow inhale and a longer exhale. Let your shoulders drop until gravity wins by a millimeter. Taste the air in your mouth. Feel the edge of your seat under your thighs and the steady weight of your feet on the floor. Ask the question that keeps the map alive. Given what I care about, what is the next smallest step I can complete in 2 minutes? And where will I mark it when it's done? When the answer arrives, let it be humbly ordinary. Ordinary steps, repeated, edit the filter through which you see your life. The edits stack, the city changes. You've mapped the hot spots and stitched small actions into chains. Now you'll change the air. The map lives in. Your RAS doesn't work in a vacuum. It's drinking from a stream of inputs all day. Pings, faces, lighting, headlines, the unsaid expectations in a room. If the stream is muddy, even a good swimmer tires fast. If the stream is clear, you glide. This part is about designing the stream, not ascetic minimalism, just deliberate curation, so your filter has more signals than sirens. Think of it as moving from firefighting to fire codes. The same brain that reflexively scans for what's wrong can be trained to scan for what's useful if you set the conditions. Call the first framework the attention budget. Picture 100 coins you can spend in 24 hours. Every context charges a price. Doom-predicting headlines, 20 coins plus interest. A 5-minute walk without your phone, it refunds 10. A conversation where you listen for the other person's underlying need, it spends 15 and returns 15 in trust. Your prefrontal cortex tires like a muscle. Your RAS prioritizes what's novel or emotionally loud when that muscle is spent. Budgeting isn't about austerity. It's about funding what moves you forward before the loud things shove their way to the front. In practice, you decide, before noon, what 2 scenes deserve your richest attention, and you prepay them with rituals and boundaries. When noise knocks later, you can answer without giving away your rent money. Before you sketch numbers, return to your body. Feel the gentle pressure of your back against the chair. Let your breath slide along the back of your throat like warm tea. Notice the weight of the device in your hand or the desk under your forearms. On your next exhale, let your shoulders drop as if a coat were finding its hanger. Your budget will be wiser if your muscles aren't auditioning for a fight. A story to make it less abstract. Tessa is a graduate student with a talent for catastrophizing before breakfast. She'd wake to a screen ablaze with breaking news and group chat angst, and by 8 a.m. her chest felt like a clenched fist. She tried willpower and failed by Tuesday. Then she ran the attention budget for a week. She picked 2 scenes to pre-fund, her morning research sprint and her evening call to her dad, who lived alone. She set a tiny ritual for each, a 3-breath RTR before opening her notes and the perspective triangle before dialing, so she'd meet him as future mentor, present, curious, rather than as a rushed daughter. She also named 1 tax she refused to pay, headline roulette before 9. She moved her news app to the second screen and put a book widget on the first. The first 2 days were twitchy. Her thumb hunted for the old icon like a migrating bird. But by Friday, her chest felt roomier in the morning, and the call with her dad ended with a warmth under her sternum rather than a guilt ache. The budget worked not because she turned into a monk, but because she funded what she actually valued and made one noisy toll booth hard to reach. The science underneath is unromantic and liberating. Decision fatigue and glucose dips make your prefrontal cortex stingy. When it's underpowered, the RAS defaults to novelty and threat. By front-loading rituals that stabilize breathing, widen peripheral vision, and clarify intention, you're raising the signal-to-noise ratio during the hours when your brain is best at choosing. By removing 1 or 2 frictionless doors to addictive inputs, you're shrinking the opportunities for the bouncer to be bribed by sirens. Anchor again. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect, then the nearest. Maybe a car, then the whisper of your own breath. Feel the fabric on your wrists, the coolness at your cheeks. Let your jaw unclench so your tongue can rest against the roof of your mouth. The more precisely you sense, the more precisely you spend. You'll pair the budget with a second framework, input architecture. Imagine your day as a house. Some rooms should be sanctuaries, some can be marketplaces, and some must be workshops. Sanctuary rooms get few inputs and soft light. Marketplaces get variety but clear rules. Workshops get tools within reach and distractions out of sight. You will mark one physical space and one digital space in each category. Your bedside becomes sanctuary. Lamp, book, water, no headline devices within arm's length. Your commute becomes marketplace. Podcasts allowed, but only from a pre-made Signal playlist you build on Sundays that feeds curiosity and skill rather than outrage. Your desk becomes workshop, your tag words in view, your next smallest step visible, your notifications silenced for 90-minute blocks, with a scheduled check-in at the top of the hour. The architecture teaches your RAS what to expect when you cross a threshold. Thresholds are powerful. The hippocampus encodes context with memory. When a doorway reliably leads to calm or craft, your filter anticipates it and meets you with the right spotlight. Set a tiny drill in motion called home screen surgery. Without fanfare, move any app that runs on outrage or endless scroll off your first screen and tuck it into a folder named Later. Bring forward 3 tools that embody your tags: notes, calendar, reading, breath. Rename your top folder Forward Cues. When your thumb opens your phone, your eyes will land on what you intend rather than on what the culture sells. This is not cosmetic. It's a guardrail for your bouncer. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. As you exhale, soften your gaze so your peripheral vision widens by a finger's width. Feel the ground under your feet, the honest gravity that never argues. Widening your field tells your midbrain there is space. Space buys you choice. Another story from a different lane. Marco manages a small restaurant and used to start every shift by scanning staff texts for complaints. Within minutes, his shoulders would creep up and he'd bark orders. He tried input architecture by declaring the first 10 minutes after clock-in a sanctuary as much as a kitchen allows. He stood near the back door, felt the cool air, counted 2 rounds of 446, and scanned for one signal worth praising before doing anything else. He also built a signal playlist for pre-shift, one short track from a culinary mentor and one from a coach he respected, both archived offline so no algorithm could yank him elsewhere. The first week felt forced. The second week, he noticed his RAS tagging different details. Mise en place done early at station 3. Server coaching a new hire without being asked. He caught himself saying, "Keep that, nice," before giving a correction. The room changed a degree because his filter did. By month's end, staff turnover had dipped. That's not magic. That's a house with better wiring. You might resist this as over-engineered. Notice the resistance as a loyal old habit trying to save energy. Then nudge. Input. Architecture is not about policing your life. It's about automating sanity where you can, so you can spend attention on what requires art. You do not need willpower to keep sugar out of a room you never walk into. You need one decision about the door. Set a micro practice called the 2-app rule. For 1 week, you allow only 2 discretionary apps on your home screen besides utilities, and both must be net forward. Reading, language, music you intentionally chose for state. Everything else hides one swipe away. Each time your thumb seeks old loops, you'll feel a ghost tug. You'll run N3, whisper, notice, name the tug, and nudge your thumb to a forward tool. Every reroute is a rep. Reps grow circuits. Your RAS will learn your new home field. Place a hand over your sternum and the other on your belly. Inhale until the top hand rises. Exhale until the lower hand dips. Hear the faint sound of your clothes as your chest shifts. This is how you anchor in a room you've redesigned, with breath, with touch, with sound, with light. To fund the budget and stabilize the architecture, you'll use a tiny reinforcement called RAS receipts. When you notice your filter catching a forward cue, asking a better question, seeing a handle in friction, pausing for the weather rule, you record a single line somewhere you actually open, no essays. Tagged calm before reply. Chose question over defense. Skipped headline roulette. At night, you read 3 lines out loud. Your voice acts like a highlighter across synapses. The hippocampus likes narrative. The RAS likes relevance. Your vocal cords make both sticky. Over time, these receipts become an identity ledger, not because the words are grand, but because they're routine. A home scene to show what this looks like when emotions run hotter. You promised your teenager you'd talk about curfew after dinner. The table clears, and they drop a sarcastic comment that stings. Old you feels the amygdala swell and the courtroom door slam. New you steps into the house you built. The living room lamp is warm, phones are face down, sanctuary rules apply. You run the 90-second weather rule, watch the wave, keep behavior simple. Then you use your input architecture mantra, a sentence you taped inside a cabinet. Slow is smooth, smooth is kind. You speak slower. You ask, what's the one thing you want me to understand before we talk times? They roll their eyes, then say, that I kept the last 2 promises. You hear it because your filter is set to catch signals. You still set a boundary, but the conversation is a path, not a cliff. Later, you jot a receipt, heard the signal in the sting, and your chest warms the way it does when you pass a window and realize the light is better than you thought. The nervous system loves rhythms. Your RAS learns from repeated, embodied patterns more than from arguments with yourself, so you'll wrap these tools in simple music. Morning, 60 seconds of budget review, RTR with your tags, and one tiny move to pre-fund your richest scene. Midday, 1 minute of home screen surgery enforcement, sliding the drifted app back into later, then 2, 4, 4, 6 breaths while your eyes soften. Evening, 2 minutes to read your receipts and adjust tomorrow's architecture by an inch. Move a lamp, lay out a book, tape a question to a fridge. This is not a performance, it's housekeeping. The house you tend is the lens through which you live. Feel for the edge of your seat against your thighs. Let your shoulders settle until gravity wins a millimeter. Taste the air in your mouth, whatever faint flavor lingers. Notice one texture within reach, a mug's rim, a paper's tooth, and let your fingertips study it like a map. You're teaching your attention to be tactile, not theoretical. Tactile attention is harder to hijack. If your identity balks, I'm not a routine person. Catch the story mid-sentence and try on a different one. I'm the person who curates the room my best self walks into. You can still be spontaneous inside a well-built house. In fact, you'll have more range because your RAS isn't bleeding coins on avoidable noise. You're not becoming rigid, you're becoming well-resourced. One more small drill will keep the budget honest, the one-window rule. When you work, you keep only one window fully visible at a time for the task at hand. You can still switch, but you switch on purpose using the choice chain's record step as a hinge. Before toggling, you whisper, "Close clean," check a box, and exhale for 6. This gives your brain closure, protects dopamine from smear, and tells the RAS that each context deserves a spotlight rather than a strobe. Over days, your sense of progress returns in strands instead of static. The strands add up to fabric. The fabric feels like dignity. By now you can sense the deeper shift. This is not about avoiding negativity at all costs. It's about refusing to let uncurated inputs weight your filter more heavily than your values do. Some headlines deserve attention. Some conversations demand courage. The difference now is that you meet them funded, housed, and carrying proof that you can choose. You are the awareness, not the emotion. You are the architect of rooms where better choices are easier to make. Take one more slow inhale. On the exhale, imagine the bouncer at the door of your attention reading a guest list you wrote this morning. Feel your chest broaden a finger's width. Let your eyes soften until you notice a detail you missed 5 minutes ago. The hairline crack in a tile, a tiny reflection in glass. The way shadow rounds an edge. That's your RAS getting better at finding what's useful because you taught it where to look. Tonight, lay one object in your sanctuary that will greet you in the morning with a question you like. Tomorrow, fund what you care about first. Then watch how many sirens lose their grip simply because the house is different. You've built rooms that support you, and you're keeping receipts of who you're becoming. Now you'll rewire the script that runs inside those rooms. Your attention doesn't only follow what you see, it follows the words you whisper to yourself between breaths. Language is a steering wheel. Tilt a sentence by a degree, and your RAS tilts with it, fetching different evidence, scanning for different handles. Up to now, you've interrupted spirals and designed spaces. Here, you'll engineer the story you hear when no one is listening and make it a tool, not a verdict. Call this the language switchboard. Imagine a panel with 3 lit toggles. You flip them in order anytime your inner narrator goes dark and loud. The first toggle is distance, the move you've practiced before. I'm having the thought that, or a worry is saying. Those extra words pry your identity loose from the sentence long enough to breathe. The second toggle is direction. You attach a yet or a so that to the end of the thought and point it toward a useful aim. I'm having the thought that I'm behind, yet my next 2 minutes can move the needle. Or, a worry is saying they'll judge me, so that I keep my voice low and ask one clarifying question. The third toggle is decision. You name the smallest observable action you'll take in the next 60 seconds, not a pep talk, not a manifesto, an action any camera could see. Your RAS learns quickly when verbs lead. It hears the format and starts tagging contexts where distance, direction, and decision fit as if they were familiar doorways. Feel the chair supporting the back of your ribs. Notice the subtle warmth where your thighs meet the seat. On your next inhale, trace the word distance in your mind. On the pause, the word direction. On the exhale, the word decision, longer than the others. The rhythm is real. Your brain trusts rhythm more than slogans. Why does this panel work? 2 reasons you can feel. When you create cognitive distance, your language networks Dampen amygdala volume, the way a hand lowers a dimmer switch. Labeling organizes the storm. When you add a directional clause, your prefrontal cortex updates the RAS with a goal tag. The bouncer starts scanning for anything that rhymes with the tag. When you close with a decision, motor circuits engage and reward pathways prepare for completion. You've turned a threat story into a movement story in one breath. Repeat it across a week, and your default sentences soften by themselves. Run a micro-practice now. Think of a snag from today, minor or large. Maybe it's the email you're avoiding, the meeting with a person who interrupts, the workout you promised and keep delaying. Whisper, I'm having the thought that I'll fail the moment I start. Add a hinge, yet beginning for 60 seconds is me keeping a promise. Or, so that I can learn what's actually hard instead of what I fear is hard. Finish with your camera-visible verb, I will type the subject line, or I will put on shoes and stand at the door, or I will walk to my colleague and ask, what does success look like by Friday? Notice your chest. The pressure shifts a degree when a sentence includes a verb you can do. Your RAS clocks the shift and files it under usable. Let your eyes soften until your peripheral vision widens by a thumb's width. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect, then the nearest, maybe a truck in the distance, then the brush of your own breath. That widening tells your midbrain there is room. Room invites better sentences. Edge moments are where language and environment meet, so you'll build a ritual that fits the places you cross all day. Name it the doorway reset. Every threshold becomes a tiny dojo, the conference room entrance, the apartment door, the driver's seat, the click before you join a call. The protocol is short on purpose. 1. You pause with your hand on the literal or virtual frame and let your gaze lift to the horizon or the top edge of the screen. Horizon gazing widens your field and signals safety. 2. You run a single 4-4-6 breath while whispering your 3 RTR tags in sequence. 3. You speak your first sentence on purpose, out loud if appropriate, under your breath if not, a sentence that embodies your tags and your switchboard decision. Good to see you. One question to make sure I heard right. Or, I'm here to listen first. Or, let's start with the smallest piece we can ship. The doorway becomes a rehearsal space, and your RAS learns the smell of calm at the threshold. After a week of doorway resets, rooms greet you differently because you step into them differently. Feel the coolness along your nostrils on the inhale, the faint warmth on the exhale. Sense the texture under your fingertips, the ridge of your mug, the tooth of paper, the smoothness of a doorknob. Those textures are anchors. You're braiding them into the reset so the ritual survives on tired days. A story from a day that could have gone sideways. Priya is a product lead at a small startup about to present to a skeptical investor. She's smart, quick, and carries a private museum of old exhibits titled Prove You Belong. 40 minutes before the meeting, her co-founder slacks. We might cut the demo if questions run long. Her stomach drops. The old sentence springs up fully formed. They'll think we're sloppy. She almost rewrites slides frantically. Instead, she walks to the elevator and treats it as a doorway. She sets her palm on the frame, lifts her gaze to the far wall, breathes 4-4-6, and runs the switchboard. I'm having the thought that they'll read any change as incompetence. Yet my job is to keep the frame steady so the signal is clear, so that I ask one clarifying question before we cut anything. I will say, given your priorities, are you more interested in retention or onboarding friction today? She enters the room. First sentence lands exactly as rehearsed. The investor says, retention. The demo narrows. The questions sharpen. Midway through, a hiccup. Priya feels heat in her face and her tongue go dry. Doorway. Reset without a door, eyes to horizon, one breath, then a sentence shaped by direction and decision. I'm going to narrate the fix so you see what the worst day looks like. The air in the room changes a degree. After the meeting, no hero shot, just a steady hum in her chest where panic used to be. They don't get an instant check. They get a second meeting and a specific ask. Her body files that as new evidence. You can cross a threshold and choose your first sentence. The room follows your sentence more than your fear. Your RAS is exquisitely sensitive to first and last. First sentences, set a search query. Last sentences, set a memory tag. The doorway reset gives you control over the first. The language switchboard helps you close with a last line you want to remember. At the end of a scene, add one sentence that names what you want your brain to fetch next time. The investor leaned in when we showed the retention cohort. My partner softened when I summarized their point first. The article felt serious. My body felt steady. These one-liners are not bragging. They're instructions to your bouncer. Take a slow inhale and let the exhale lengthen until your belly draws in slightly. Drop your shoulders until gravity wins a millimeter. Taste the air in your mouth, faint coffee or nothing at all. The body writes in the margins of language. Each sensation is punctuation. If your inner skeptic mutters that scripted sentences will make you robotic, catch the mutter and test it. Precision at the start gives you room to improvise after. Jazz needs a key. The reset gives you one. Also, language changes physiology. When you swap always and never for sometimes. And so far, your nervous system hears possibility. Possibility widens the window of tolerance. Within that window, your prefrontal cortex does its best work. Let's sharpen your ear with a small drill called the two-word tuner. You listen for 2 words that spike your stress. Always, never, should, ruined, everyone, no one. And you practice replacing them with a pair that your body can live with. Sometimes, lately, prefer, until, a few, someone. The swap isn't semantics, it's state. They always ignore me becomes, lately I feel missed by a few people in meetings, which opens the door to, so that I ask for a quick round of input and speak second, which your camera can see. Run the tuner in your head 3 or 4 times today and watch how your shoulders behave. If they drop even a centimeter, that's the sound of your RAS recalibrating. Listen for the hum of a vent or a distant car. Feel the fabric at your wrist and the temperature along your cheeks. Let your gaze rest on a wall and pick out a detail you hadn't noticed. The nick in the paint, the faint gradient where shadow meets light. Sensory accuracy trains verbal accuracy. When your words match reality more closely, your RAS trusts you. There's a second micro-practice that binds switchboard and doorway together, the 7 and 7 walk. You take 7 minutes and find 7 forward cues in whatever street or hallway you're on. A neighbor watering plants with a rhythm you can match for 3 breaths. A sign with 1 verb you can use as your tag for the next hour. A clean workspace through a coffee shop window that reminds you to clear yours. The walk is not for exercise, it's calibration. You're proving that in any environment, your filter can locate handles. When you return, You write a single line, found 7, and you feel the satisfying heaviness in your forearms. That means your attention did work you can trust. A home scene brings these tools where emotions run thickest. You're late. The apartment is cluttered. Your kid can't find a shoe. The sentence in your head is sharp and old. Why is it always like this? You hear the word always and run the 2-word tuner mid-stride. Lately, mornings feel rushed. You step to the door and use the frame. Horizon eyes. One breath with your tags. Steady, kind, clear. Then your first sentence out loud. We're 6 minutes behind. I'll find the shoe while you zip. We can still be on time. The room shifts half a degree because your language turned the boulder into pebbles. Later, you close the scene with a last line you want to remember. We made it at 8:51 after a reset. Your RAS keeps that tag ready for tomorrow's threshold. If the science needs more bones, here they are in plain speech. Broca's and Wernicke's areas love patterns. They reward phrases you can repeat under stress. The anterior cingulate monitors conflict. When you run distance direction decision, you reduce conflict between what you fear and what you can do. The RAS keys off nouns and verbs. Nouns like crisis drag the spotlight to alarms. Verbs like ask, write, breathe drag it to handles. You don't need a lab coat to feel this. You need one sentence that ends in a verb you can complete. Place one hand on your sternum and the other on your belly. Inhale until the top hand lifts. Exhale until the lower hand dips. Whisper, first sentence on the exhale. That whisper will come back to you in a doorway when the stakes feel high. Your future self will hear it and smile, because the body learned the cue before the mind did. Identity shifts here in quieter ways. When you hear yourself say, I'm the person who chooses my first sentence, your shoulders drop because that identity is small and repeatable. When you hear yourself say, I'm the person who runs the switchboard when my brain shouts, your chest warms because you recognize yourself as the operator, not the static. You are the awareness, not the emotion, and your awareness has levers. Another scene, this time at work where respect matters. Andre, a project coordinator, gets cut off in meetings. So often, he's started to predict it before the agenda lands. His inner sentence is corrosive. No one listens unless I raise my voice. He tries the switchboard a week before a high-stakes planning session. He writes on an index card he keeps under his laptop, I'm having the thought that I'm invisible, yet I tend to get traction when I prime before meetings so that I ask 2 people for 90 seconds up front. Morning of, he uses the doorway reset at the conference room. He puts his palm on the frame, lifts his gaze, breathes, and steps in with his first sentence planned. I'll set a 2-minute frame, and then I want your challenges. Twice, someone tries to interject. He lifts a hand and says, give me one more sentence, not as a plea, but as a calm boundary. After, he writes a last line he wants his RAS to keep. Clarity plus a boundary kept the thread. The next week, his nervous system doesn't brace as hard. His identity nudges toward leader not by title, but by behavior he can repeat. If you want one more tiny edge, tuck this in your pocket, the closing bow. When you end an exchange, you nod, literally or internally, and say, we found one handle. It can be clumsy at first. It can be silent. The bow is not performance. It's a signal to mark completion. The RAS loves clean endings. They bookend scenes so your attention can release without lingering static. Bow, breathe, Walk through the next doorway. Repeat. Let your shoulders hang and your jaw soften. Roll your neck as if tracing a slow circle with your nose. Listen again for the far sound, then the near. Notice the pattern of light in the room, how it pools on a surface and leaves another in shadow. You're teaching your perception to be specific, because specificity is harder to scare. Tonight, take 3 minutes and practice the language switchboard on paper. Pick one sticky sentence that shows up often and run distance, direction, and decision, twice each with small variations, until one version makes your chest feel roomy. Tape that version somewhere your eyes land in a doorway you cross tomorrow. In the morning, run one doorway reset before anything else that has a frame. Bathroom, kitchen, inbox tab. Then run one at a high-stakes threshold. Close the day with a last line you want your bouncer to file. If you miss a ritual, you don't declare defeat. You run a reset on the next doorway. The next doorway always arrives. The point is not to police your language for perfection. The point is to program your attention with phrases your body can trust. When the room gets loud, your words will be the quiet spine you stand up against. When the day gets messy, your first sentence will be a hand on a railing. The house you built will feel different because the air inside it changed. You're not the storm in your head. You are the person who names the weather, chooses a first sentence, and steps through the door you meant to walk through. You've tuned the words you use at thresholds, and you've rehearsed first and last sentences that keep you steady. Now you'll reshape the way your RAS reads people. Most of your stress isn't from snakes or sirens. It's from faces, tones, and unfinished sentences. The same filter that spots threat headlines also hunts for criticism in a shrug, contempt in a pause, rejection in a silence. When that filter is tilted, you miss the micro moments that move relationships forward, bids for connection, chances to repair, windows to set a boundary before resentment blooms. This chapter teaches your attention to catch those forward cues, not to become soft, to become skillful. You'll train 2 protocols, one for turning toward, one for drawing lines that breathe. Call the first protocol bid radar. A bid is any small reach from another person for your attention, respect, or help. It's rarely poetic. It sounds like, "Look at this," or "Did you see the sky?" or "Do you have a second?" Your old filter might tag these as interruptions. Your new filter tags them as opportunities to bank trust. The method is turn toward into TT2. When a bid lands, you take 2 quiet beats before responding. In beat 1, you name the bid in your mind. Bid for help, bid for being seen, bid for play. In beat 2, you choose the smallest turn toward that honors the bid without abandoning your own task. A glance, a 1 sec, finishing this sentence, a hand on a shoulder, a single curious question. You don't have to give the person everything they want. You give the bid a landing pad so your RAS learns to spot them faster. Over time, your attention stops tagging a sigh as a tack and starts tagging it as a reach. Feel your body for a moment so your radar has a calm screen. Notice the coolness of air on your nostrils on the inhale and the faint warmth on the exhale. Sense the weight of your forearms where they touch a surface. Let your shoulders fall a centimeter as if a coat were finding its hook. With a slow breath, say in your mind, bid, breath, turn. Let the words ride the exhale. A story in a kitchen where this matters. Sophia comes home late, drops her bag, and sees her partner Eli at the stove. The pan hisses, the counter's a mess, and a wobbly tower of mail leans like a dare. Eli says, not looking up. The landlord emailed again, then stirs harder. Sophia's old filter hears accusation. You forgot. Her chest tightens. A courtroom warms up behind her ribs. She has practiced TT2 all week. Beat 1. She names the bid. Bid for partnership, maybe reassurance. Beat 2. She turns without betraying herself. She steps closer, touches the counter with 2 fingers like a grounding rod, and says, softer than the pan, I saw the subject line. I'll reply after we eat. Tell me one thing about your day first. Eli's shoulders drop. The new line cook showed up early and actually did great. The kitchen doesn't become a movie. It becomes a place where 2 people can eat and answer 1 email. Later, Sophia sends the reply she promised. She doesn't feel noble. She feels an unsexy steadiness in her chest, a weight that says, this is how a room gets kinder, not by grand vows, but by catching bids before your amygdala writes the plot. The science is simple enough to trust. Your RAS flags social threat aggressively because loneliness used to mean death, and your amygdala hates ambiguity. Bids often arrive in ambiguous wrappers, flat tones, distracted eyes. When you name the bid class, your prefrontal cortex sends a different query to the filter. Find me reach, find me repair. You still protect yourself from harm. You just stop bleeding coins on misread signals. Pair that with your breathing and your vagus nerve whispers safety down your torso. Your voice drops, your face softens, and the room hears you as less of a threat. You're not faking calm. You're instructing your biology to reopen the part of your brain that chooses. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect, then the nearest, the low engine outside, the brush of your own breath. Feel your feet, touch the floor, and the texture under your fingertips. Sensory accuracy is social accuracy's warm-up. When your own system is precise, your RRAS reads others more precisely. Now for the second protocol, the one that stops slow-burning resentment. Name it the boundary bridge. Many boundaries fail because they arrive as walls, harsh, late, brittle. The bridge is 3 moves, kind, clear, kept, and 1 body cue. Kind states your value and your respect. Clear states your behavior change. In a sentence a camera could record. Kept enforces the boundary gently, consistently, without new drama. The body cue is palm-down voice. You soften your jaw, lower your shoulders, and let your hand settle palm down on a surface or your thigh. That posture tells your nervous system you're not begging or barking. You're anchoring. You'll use a simple sentence frame to make the bridge easy. You say, I value X, so I will Y. If Z happens, I'll W. Value grounds you in identity, will names your choice. If, then removes mystery. Your RAS loves if, then because it's a switch, not a story. You rehearse the sentence once at a doorway, feel your palm down anchor, and then you walk it across the bridge. Put your hand gently on a surface now and feel the texture, the cool ceramic, the grain of wood, the smooth plastic. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. On the exhale, whisper in your mind, kind, clear, kept. Notice your voice in your imagination drop a half step. That sound is the one you'll reach for in a real conversation. Here's a scene where the bridge protects a night. You're on the couch at 9:52 p.m. and a message from your manager pops, quick question, can you send the deck tonight? Your chest jumps. Old you replies instantly or spirals for an hour. New you stands, touches the door frame to feel wood under your fingers, and runs the bridge. I value thorough work and being rested for tomorrow, so I will send an updated deck at 9 a.m. If something mission critical can't wait, call me, and I'll send a placeholder tonight. You type it, read it once with your palm down cue, and hit send. Your RAS trembles for a minute. Your amygdala mutters, "They'll be mad." 90 seconds later, a thumb up and a 9 a.m. works. Even if a pushback came, you had an if, then ready. More important, your nervous system registers that you can set a line without setting a fire. The bridge holds because you kept it, not because the other person validated it. 2 micro drills make these protocols stick. The first is micro yes, micro no. Whenever you say no, you add a tiny yes to the value that guides it. No to slack at night, yes to showing up clear in the morning. No to gossip, yes to solving the thing we can actually change. Your RAS hears the yes and tags the boundary as forward rather than defensive. The second is the repair switch for when you miss a bid or blow a boundary. It's 3 tiny moves: observe, warmth, next step. You say, "I noticed I cut you off earlier," or "I saw your face drop when I checked my phone." Then you add warmth in a sentence, not a paragraph. "That wasn't what I meant," or "I care about your point." Then you ask for the next step. "Can we rewind 30 seconds?" Or "Say the most important sentence again." The switch turns a stumble into a rep. Reps, not perfection, rewire filters. Let your eyes soften so your peripheral vision widens a finger's width. Taste the air in your mouth, whatever faint flavor lingers. Feel the outline of your jaw and let it hang a notch looser. These small signals are the hinges that doors swing on in tense rooms. Another story, because work is where tone and timing go to war. Darren runs a small team and hates being perceived as needy, so he often swallows feedback until it erupts. After a choppy sprint, he sent a late-night message with 5 quick notes that landed like stones. The next day, faces were tight. He recognized the pattern: bid missed, boundary blown, and used the repair switch. Observe. I sent feedback late and in a way that made the room bristle. Warmth. I respect the work you shipped under pressure. Next step. Let's walk through one item now and schedule the rest tomorrow. He paired it with bid radar, catching a teammate's small reach. I want to understand the frame. And turn toward with a precise sentence. The frame is reducing handoffs, not perfection. Shoulders loosened, the meeting moved. That afternoon, he wrote a boundary bridge to himself. I value focus, so I will send non-urgent feedback before 5. If it's late, I'll wait until morning. He taped it near his monitor and felt his chest widen a degree. Boundaries that breathe aren't just for other people. They're for the parts of you that prefer chaos, because it feels like old home. If your mind argues that bids and boundaries will slow everything down, notice the old myth. That speed equals safety. Real speed is steady execution without repair costs. TT2 takes 2 beats and often saves 2 hours of cleanup. A boundary spoken cleanly once saves a month of tight shoulders. Your RAS updates when it sees that slow moments birth fast days. Listen for a fan, a passing car, the faintest hum in your space. Feel the weight of your feet, the pressure of your heels into the floor, the contact of fabric along your wrists. The more you can inhabit this body, the more you can read another's without projecting your museum onto them. Your language tools from the last chapter plug straight into bid radar and the boundary bridge. The 2-word tuner replaces always and never with lately, and sometimes so your bids don't become trials. The doorway reset lets you pick a first sentence that honors both you and the other person. You can even add a tag day for relationships, steady, curious, kind, to prime your filter to scan for cues that match those words. Priming isn't manipulation. It's fairness to who you want to be. Try a micro practice you can use tonight. It's called the 2-sentence boundary. Stand near a doorway. Feel wood or metal under your palm. Breathe 4-4-6 once. Then say out loud, even if softly, I value being present at dinner, so I will leave my phone in the other room. If I forget and pick it up, I'll put it face down and finish the conversation first. Notice your body's reaction. If your chest loosens by a finger's width, your RAS tag the boundary as coherent with your values. If it tightens, adjust the sentence until your body says yes to the yes inside the no. An evening scene shows how these tools can soften a sharp edge. You're carrying groceries. A roommate calls from the couch. You didn't get oat milk again? Your body cues up a retort. You hear the heat in your neck and feel your tongue go dry. TT2, bid class, bid for being considered. Turn. You wanted oat. I grabbed almond by habit. I'll swap it when I go back out. Then the bridge. I value sharing the load, so I'll text you before I head to the store and ask for last-minute ads. If I'm already there, I'll choose and we'll live with the choice. You aren't groveling, you're steering. 10 seconds later, the room is just a room, not a verdict on your worth. You jot a RAS receipt later, caught bid, set tiny boundary, and your chest warms for 5 quiet seconds, the way it does when sunlight slides across a floor. Under the hood, you're doing something elegant. You're teaching your filter that social life is a stream of small signals, not a gallery of permanent judgments. Bids become chances to invest. Boundaries become paths, not punishments. Your amygdala will still flare in a sharp tone, but the flare is brief when your first 2 beats are trained. Your prefrontal cortex appreciates this because it regains oxygen faster. Your identity appreciates it because you stop playing either doormat or porcupine and start being a steward of the room you're in. Let your hand rest palm down again. Listen for the closest sound, the whisper of your own breath, the faint rustle of clothing. Soften your gaze until the edges of the room return. Ask your body, not your mind, for one sentence you can speak tomorrow that would turn toward someone you care about without abandoning yourself. Let the sentence be small. Tell me one thing you're proud of today. I can give you 10 minutes now or 40 after lunch. Which helps more? I value rest, so I'll answer this in the morning. Before you sleep tonight, try a count. Count 10 bids across the day. 5 you turned toward, 5 you missed. No scolding. Just counts and one quiet question. What cue would help me catch the ones I missed? Maybe it's the sigh you usually interpret as contempt that is actually fatigue. Maybe it's the way your own shoulders rise when you're about to bulldoze. Install one cue, run one bridge, write one receipt, that's all. Your identity shifts here in a quiet direction. You are not the person who survives relationships by bracing. You are the person who notices reach, offers small turns, and sets lines that stay soft at the edges and firm in the middle. You are the awareness, not the emotion, the steward, not the static, the boundary that breathes, not the wall that breaks. The room changes because you change the way you meet it. One beat, one palm down sentence, one kept promise at a time. Take one long inhale and a longer exhale. Feel your feet root. Taste the air, faint and ordinary. Notice one detail in the room you hadn't seen before, the way light touches a corner, the scratch on a surface. That noticing is the same muscle you'll use when a bid lands or a line needs drawing. Tomorrow, test TT2 once And the boundary bridge once. Make them small, almost invisible to anyone but you. Your RAS will notice. It will tag the moment and bring you more like it. That's how a lens becomes a life. Momentum is not a mood. It's a rhythm in your body that your attention can learn to surf. You've turned toward bids and set boundaries that breathe. Now you'll master the long game, sustaining focus without frying your circuits and turning mistakes into fuel instead of proof that you're the problem. This is where the RAS becomes a metronome. It stops chasing novelty and starts keeping time with how your energy actually rises and falls through a day. You'll learn to ride the waves and repair the dips with two frameworks that work even on sleep-deprived Tuesdays, a cycle you can surf and a way to alchemize errors without the usual shame static. Call the first framework the Ultradian Focus Wave. Your brain doesn't run on a single battery. It cycles through 90-ish minute peaks and valleys. During a peak, norepinephrine and dopamine keep the lights bright in your prefrontal cortex. During a valley, adenosine and fatigue nudge you toward mind-wandering. If you ignore the valley, your RAS starts craving sirens, scrolls, snacks, drama to jack the lights back up. If you partner with the valley, you keep the signal strong. The wave has 3 moves: launch, cruise, recover. Launch is your first 5 minutes. RTR tags on the breath, and one doorway, reset sentence that ends in a camera-visible verb. Cruise is 30 to 70 minutes, where you run the one-window rule and the choice chain on repeat. Recover is 7 to 20 minutes, where you deliberately drop arousal and widen your field so your filter stops begging for chaos. You're not taking a break. You're teaching your attention that rest is part of relevance. Before you test the wave, anchor into the instrument you'll be surfing with. Feel the back of your ribs supported by the chair. Notice the temperature along your cheeks and the line where fabric touches your forearms. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. On the exhale, soften your gaze until the edges of the room come back into view. Your body just told your RAS, we're safe enough to choose. Here's your micro drill for the recover piece, because that's where most people slip. Name it the Reset Quartet. When a valley arrives, you feel your focus fray, your eyes tunnel, your shoulders float up, you step away from the screen or the conversation for 2 minutes and run 4 toggles in order. Horizon. Lift your eyes to a distant point, even out a window. Peripheral vision calms urgency. Breath. 2 rounds of 4-4-6 to return blood to your planning circuits. Body. Shake your hands loose, roll your shoulders, and stretch your jaw open, then closed. Proprioception resets the map of your edges. Note. You write 1 line. Ended at 10:42. Next is paragraph 3. So your RAS trusts you'll re-enter clean. The quartet isn't indulgence, it's maintenance. It tells your midbrain, we have a pattern that includes rest, so it stops bribing you with sirens. A story of the wave in the wild. Keisha runs customer support for a growing app and carries a history that says the only way to be valuable is to be available. Her days used to dissolve into reactive pings, and by evening her chest felt wired and hollow. She tried the Ultradian Focus Wave for 3 mornings. On day 1, she launched at 9 with tags, steady, precise, kind, and a first sentence under her breath. Write the escalation script version A. She cruised for 42 minutes with a timer she couldn't see, just a chime. At the chime, her hand reached for Slack by reflex. She caught it, stood, walked to the window, and ran the Reset Quartet. 2 minutes later, she wrote 1 line. Script A done, script B, at 10:15 and returned. By noon she had 2 scripts she used to drag across 3 days. The valley wasn't a failure. It was part of the music. Her chest felt full and heavy in a good way, like after swimming laps. 2 days later, a crisis hit. She launched a short wave, 5-minute sprint to triage, 2-minute quartet, then a 20-minute cruise to rewrite the status page. The rhythm didn't erase stress. It taught it where to go. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect, then the nearest, the faint hum of air, the whisper of your own breath. Feel your feet meet the floor, heels and balls and toes. Let your shoulders hang a centimeter lower, as if a coat were settling on a hook. That's your nervous system remembering you have weight, which is the opposite of being yanked by every ping. The science piece matters because it untangles superstition. When you cooperate with an Ultradian valley, you're not being weak. You're preventing your prefrontal cortex from going dark. You're also preventing your RAS from tying relief to cheap novelty. Each time you recover in a way your body can feel, horizon, breath, movement, note, you wire rest as relevant. That relevance becomes a quiet compulsion you can trust. Now for the second framework, the one that turns stumbles into steering. Call it error alchemy. Most people treat mistakes like identity verdicts. Your amygdala hates surprises, and a miss is a surprise. Dopamine prediction error fires, and the brain leans hard toward never again, which often means never try. In error alchemy, you use that same prediction error to increase learning instead of shame. 3 moves: flag, frame, fix. Flag is a neutral marker. You add the instant you notice the miss. No essay, no spin. Frame is a 2-sentence story that names the workable cause without character assassination. Fix is the next smallest experiment that closes the loop and creates a win your RAS can tag as evidence. The key is speed and body feel. The longer you wait, the more your museum adds dramatic lighting to the exhibit. Move quickly, and you keep the lights honest. You'll need a tiny object to make flag automatic. Use the red dot rule. Keep a pen or app where you work and place a literal dot next to a task or in a margin. When you notice a slip, sent wrong attachment, missed a promise, snapped at a teammate. The dot is not a confession. It's a lighthouse. 3 dots on the same pattern trigger a 5-minute frame and fix. This frequency keeps you from wallowing for an hour or ignoring it for a week. Your RAS loves thresholds. 3 dots becomes a door that opens to learning rather than a trapdoor to self-attack. Feel your fingertips rub together and notice the tiny ridges catching. Put one palm over your sternum and the other on your belly. Inhale until the top hand rises. Exhale until the lower hand dips. Whisper the words flag, frame, fix on the breath, each on its own phase. You're warming up the circuit that will keep you honest in motion. A story with stakes that sting. Omar is a junior account manager who sent a proposal with the wrong price grid. The client replied with a curt, "We need to discuss," and CC'd a manager. Omar's throat went dry. The old narrative, "My carelessness ruins everything," flailed for the microphone. He saw the dot rule on his notebook and drew 1 red dot. Flag done. He stood, touched the doorframe, and breathed once to get language back online. Frame. I ran fast under cognitive load and miscopied from an older file. The cause is a sloppy checklist, not a broken character. Fix. Create a 20-second price grid check that lives at the top of the template and resend with a clear apology and the corrected attachment. He wrote, "I value accuracy. and your time. So here is the corrected grid. I've added a visible checklist to prevent a repeat. If you prefer, I'll walk you through changes on a 2-minute call. The call happened. The client sounded mildly annoyed and then said, "Thanks for the quick correction." Omar's chest warmed. The prediction error did its job. The brain remembered the relief of repair. He added a second dot later in the week when he felt tempted to skip the checklist and caught himself. 3 dots never came because the fix fit his day. That's alchemy, turning a sting into a lever you can pull tomorrow. To make error alchemy stick, you'll use a micro-practice called the after-action whisper. It's the smallest debrief possible. The moment a scene ends, meeting, email, call, you whisper one line that begins with "next time I'll" and ends with a camera-visible verb. Next time, I'll ask for the success picture in 1 sentence. Next time, I'll run the quartet before I reply. You say it quietly enough that you can feel the shape of your mouth. The mouth feel is part of the memory. The RAS stores the sentence as a tag for the next similar doorway. Taste the air in your mouth, coffee or mint or nothing at all. Let your eyes soften and widen a finger's width. Roll your shoulders forward and back, slow. These are tiny anchors, the kind that keep you from drifting into the old storm, where every miss becomes a story about who you are rather than about what you did. You might worry that all this tracking will make you obsessive. Notice the story behind that worry. Tracking is obsessive only when the metric is your worth. Here, the metric is the clarity of your next move. The red dot rule reduces vague guilt by turning "I'm terrible" into "I need a 20-second check." The after-action whisper replaces rumination with a sentence you can act on tomorrow. Your nervous system relaxes when the future has handles. The wave and the alchemy reinforce each other. During cruise, you will make micro mistakes. During recover, you'll run the quartet and jot a dot or whisper a next step. During launch, you'll use your RTR tags to encode what you learned into the first sentence. Over a month, your attention stops fearing dips and starts using them. Your identity stops fearing misses and starts mining them. You become anti-fragile not by slogans but by 1,000 tiny cycles that leave your chest heavier in the best way, like a weight vest that made you stronger without grinding your joints. A home scene shows you how this works outside of spreadsheets. You promised your sister you'd call on her birthday. You remembered all day, then forgot at night. The old museum lights up the exhibit titled, "You're Unreliable." You draw a dot on a scrap by the sink, flag. You breathe once with your palm on the doorframe of your bedroom, then frame. I relied on memory at the end of a long day. I need an external cue. Fix. Set a repeating calendar tag a day early and record a 30-second voice note now owning the miss. You send, "I value you and missed the phone call. I've set a tag so I show up earlier next time. Can we talk tomorrow?" She replies with a heart. Your chest warms. You didn't buy forgiveness with words. You built a system that future you can live with. The warmth is not just relief. It's your RAS tagging repair as relevant, which means it will help you notice the cue next time without the lash. If you like the science clean, here it is in 3 breaths. Prediction error is the gap between expected and actual. Dopamine drops and your brain pays attention. If you fill the gap with shame, attention narrows to self-attack. Learning stalls. If you fill the gap with a tiny fix and a body mark completion, dopamine rises on completion and your brain tags the context as worth repeating. Over time, Your RAS anticipates the fix faster than the flood of shame. That's not therapy talk. That's circuitry you can feel in your throat unclenching. Feel the surface under your thighs, the edge of your seat, the pressure that proves you're here. Listen for the near sound, the faint rustle of fabric as your chest moves. Let your jaw release so your tongue can rest against the roof of your mouth. Small cues, strong signals. To iron the wave into your week, you'll use a simple story you can tell your calendar. 3 waves before noon, 2 after, and leave 1 valley empty for life to use. The empty valley is where you return a call you didn't expect or walk away for sunlight because your brain feels like static. The emptiness is not laziness, it's respect for the randomness of real days. If you fill every valley with tasks, you'll burn the peaks for smoke. And because your identity is the quiet sum of what you repeat, we'll tie a ribbon around these protocols with a sentence you can live inside. I am the person who surfs my energy and learns fast from misses. When you say it, feel your chest widen a finger's width. Say it again after the next dot. Feel the heaviness in your forearms when you finish a wave and mark a line. You are not tricking yourself. You're giving your body a story that matches what it just did. Identity built this way doesn't crack under stress because it's woven from actions, not adjectives. One more scene from a corridor that smells like disinfectant and fatigue. May is a resident on a 12-hour shift. At hour 9, her eyes burn and her patience thins. She used to power through and then snap at a colleague or miss a small detail that mattered. She tried Ultradian Focus Waves across a brutal weekend. She launched each round with steady, clear, kind, and a first sentence like, "Check meds against wristband." At the Valley, she couldn't leave the floor, so she ran a micro-quartet, eyes to the far wall, 1 breath, jaw and shoulder release, 1-line note in her pocket notebook. At hour 10, she misordered a lab. Dot frame, fatigue plus haste. Fix. Ask a nurse to cross-check orders during the last 2 hours of shift. Set a sticky tag on the terminal. Cross-check last 2. The weekend ended without heroics, but also without the usual self-flaying. She walked out into cool air and felt the temperature on her cheeks like a benediction. The RAS remembers benedictions if you give it a moment. She gave herself 5 seconds of stillness by the sliding doors before the world grabbed her again. Take 1 slow inhale, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Let your gaze widen until you can see the corners of the room. Rub 2 fingers together and feel the tiny ridges of skin. Ask yourself gently, where will I run 1 wave tomorrow, and where will I place 1 red dot if I need it? Do not plan a revolution. Plan a rhythm your body can keep on a Wednesday. You are the awareness, not the emotion. You are the musician, not the noise. The wave is your time signature. The dot is your metronome click that keeps you honest. The song you're learning to play is a life that moves forward without applause and without the constant hum of threat. When you wake, your first act can be small. Sit on the edge of your bed, feel your feet, and tag your 3 words with 1 breath. Pick the first launch sentence of the day. When fatigue rolls in, treat it like weather and run the quartet. If you slip, draw 1 dot and whisper 1 next time. At night, read the day's single best "next time I'll" sentence out loud. Your voice is a highlighter across synapses. Your RAS will notice. It will bring you more of what you practice. That's the quiet power you've been building all along. You've built rhythm and learned to turn stumbles into steering. Now you'll give the rhythm a reason. Without a reason, your RAS becomes a very fast librarian in a library without a card catalog, busy, responsive, and secretly lost. Urgency steals the wheel. You mistake motion for meaning. This chapter ties your attention to what actually matters, so the filter spots openings that move your life, not just your calendar. The science is friendly here. The RAS is tuned by active goals and emotionally charged images. If you feed it clear aims and sensory-rich cues, it will tag the world for you like a devoted scout. You'll train two frameworks that act like a compass and a route, the North Star filter and the now next North Loop. Start with the North Star filter, or NSF. It's a simple transmutation. Value words become daily verbs. Most people keep values as wall art, integrity, growth, love, too abstract to grip under stress. NSF translates each into a behavior your camera could record. Integrity becomes tell the clean truth in one sentence. Growth becomes seek one skill-raising discomfort. Love becomes turn toward one bid with warm eyes. You speak the verbs on your breath in the morning, the way a sailor checks the compass before leaving harbor. The RAS loves this because it can fetch verbs. When your day tilts, the bouncer knows who gets past the rope. Check your body so the compass sits in steady hands. Feel the backs of your ribs supported by the chair. Notice the coolness along your nostrils as air enters and the faint warmth as it leaves. On your next inhale, silently say the first value. On the pause, say the verb that carries it. On the exhale, imagine one tiny scene today where it could happen. Your jaw loosens a degree when a word becomes a move. That looseness is your vagus nerve signaling the prefrontal cortex. We have direction. You can plan. A story to show you how this lands in a messy day. Danny, a freelance videographer, is drowning in almost opportunities, DMs, lukewarm leads, favors that pretend to be collaborations. Her body recognizes the pattern: shallow breath, buzzing temples, the museum wing titled Say Yes or Disappear. She tries the North Star filter for 1 week. She picks 3 values, and for each writes a verb she can perform even when tired. Craft becomes ship a usable cut daily. Connection becomes send one generous note without angle. Autonomy becomes quote rates without apology. Morning of day 3, a glossy brand offers exposure. Old Danny's RAS would light up at the shiny logo. NSF shifts the tag. She feels the doorframe under her palm, breathes 4-4-6 once, and tests the offer against her verbs. Ship daily? A week of unpaid edits says no. Generous note? She can still reply kindly. Quote, without apology? She sends a rate and a clear scope. The reply is silence. Her chest tightens, then loosens when a different email pings. A local nonprofit she wrote last week. Her generous note wants a paid story series. Her filter is learning what forward actually feels like. Less sugar rush, more steady weight in the forearms as she edits something real. The bridge under the hood is predictable and powerful. Your RAS is instructed by what neuroscientists call goal salience. When a goal is vivid and connected to emotion, the filter boosts any cue that rhymes with it. Pair that with the ventral striatum's reward for closure, and you get a simple loop. Pick a verb that matters, complete it in a small way, let the completion feel good for 5 seconds, and your attention will seek the next cue like a heat-seeking camera. This is not magic. It's predictive coding learning a new song. Widen your senses so your compass stays true. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect, then the nearest, the distant car, the whisper of your own breath. Feel your feet find the floor, heels and balls and toes. Let your eyes soften until your peripheral vision expands by a thumb's width. Wider eyes tell your midbrain there are options. Options keep urgency from impersonating purpose. Now you'll link compass to path with the now next north loop or 3N loop. Think of it as 3 nested horizons you touch in under a minute. Now is the next 2-minute verb that embodies a value. Send one clarifying question. Write the subject line, step outside, and breathe before you call. Next is the smallest block you can finish this block or this day that gives the now a container. Outline the slide, schedule the call, draft the first paragraph. North is the picture you're moving toward in 6 weeks to 6 months, described in one sensory-rich sentence. The moment you hit publish and feel your chest warm. The meeting where you ask without apology and watch someone nod. The evening where dinner is phones down and you notice the lamp's soft circle of light. You say all 3 in one breath with a "so that" hinge. The hinge is crucial. It links motor plan to meaning. The RAS stores that hinge as a tag and will return related cues automatically. Test it in your chest rather than on a whiteboard. Place a hand on your sternum and the other on your belly. Inhale until the top hand lifts, hold. Exhale until the lower hand dips. Whisper in your mind, "Now I will draft the first 2 lines. Next, I'll shape the opening in 20 minutes. North, I'll send the pitch by Friday so that I'm the person who asks clearly." Feel for the warm spread under your ribs that arrives when your body hears a sentence it can believe. That warmth is your reward circuit agreeing to cooperate. Another story, this one from the edge of a decision. Luis works in IT and keeps threatening to switch into security. He reads job posts at midnight, scrolls forums, and wakes with a dull anxiety pit. His NSF words are steadiness, growth, service. His verbs are finish what I start, learn one hard thing in public, and help one person a day solve a real problem. He runs the 3N loop in a lunch break. Now, message the only security engineer I know and ask for a 10-minute map. Next, schedule 2 hours this weekend to replicate one lab out loud. North. In 3 months, send a simple, specific resume with one project link to 3 hiring managers so that I see myself as a maker, not a lurker. He breathes, sends the message, and feels the familiar panic flare. Who do you think you are? Then watches it with the 90-second weather rule. The engineer replies 2 hours later with a slot and a resource. Luis prints the lab instructions, runs them badly, and records his first shaky video. His RAS learns a new association. Security equals verbs, not forums. Growth equals small public proof, not insomnia. A month later, when he sees a post about a meetup, the bouncer at his attention's door lets it through because it rhymes with learn one hard thing in public. He goes. He's still nervous. He moves anyway. Your brain loves images almost as much as it loves closure. So you'll turbocharge the north horizon with a tiny practice called the future postcard. You close your eyes for 45 seconds and picture a single scene from the future that includes your values and one small success, narrated in present tense with sensory detail. You hold a mug after your first difficult conversation where you set a kind boundary. You feel the heat against your palms and the light on a late afternoon wall. You say, "That went steady and clear." Or you see your name on a sent email. Your shoulders drop. Your tongue is not dry. You murmur, "I asked plainly." You are not fantasizing a mansion. You're priming the RAS with a picture so it can tag the hallway signs that lead to that room. Then you do one now verb while the image is still warm. Each time you run the loop, postcard, then verb, you lace prediction with action. That lace is strong. Let your senses check in again. Taste the air in your mouth, faint coffee or nothing at all. Feel the fabric under your wrists and the temperature at your cheeks. Roll your shoulders forward and back, slow, until gravity wins a millimeter. These tiny adjustments are little yeses to your body. Little yeses make big yeses easier later. Because values without friction are just slogans, you'll run a quick friction to handle recode when an obstacle barks. The move is short. You name the obstacle in plain speech. Then append, and the handle is with something humble. The noise in the house at 6 p.m. and the handle is a 5-minute walk with horizon eyes before the call. The insecurity in the room and the handle is one good question first. This recode keeps the 3N loop honest. The amygdala hears the handle and reduces the flood. Your prefrontal cortex hears the handle and produces a plan. A home scene folds this into a life with other humans. Jay and Mina want dinners that are not debates with phones buzzing like cicadas. Their North Star words are kindness and clarity. The verbs are thank before critique and ask for one thing at a time. At 5:30, a message tries to pull Jay back to his laptop. He feels the old tug, breathes at the doorway, and runs now next north. Now, set the phone in the bowl and say, I'm present for the next 30 minutes. Next, if the question still matters at 7, send a 2-sentence reply. North, we end dinner with one good laugh so that this room feels like refuge. The first night is clumsy. The second night, Mina makes a bid about a colleague's tone. Jay catches it with bid radar and turns toward with a curious question. The bowl fills with 2 phones. After they eat, they add a tiny receipt to a card on the fridge. One line. Phones down. Laughed about the cat in the box. Their RAS reads the kitchen as sanctuary faster each evening because it's collecting proof it can trust. If you want crisp science to justify this tenderness, remember that episodic memory binds to place and sensory detail. When you mark "we laughed" in the same light, with the same bowl, your hippocampus links that context to your NSF verbs. Later, one whiff of the kitchen light will be enough to widen your eyes and lower your shoulders. Your attention will protect the ritual like a loyal guard dog because you taught it what the ritual gives you. Let yourself stand, if you can, and feel the pressure shift from one foot to the other. Place your palm on a door frame and notice the texture, the grain, the temperature. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Whisper, north, on the exhale, and see if your chest widens by a finger's width. That widening is your body voting yes to a direction. Bodies vote with sensation before minds vote with logic. You'll close each day with a proof stack, not a performance review. It's a 90-second narration where you speak 3 sentences that begin with "today I" and end with a verb that fits a value. You speak them out loud, softly if you must. Today I asked plainly. Today I turned toward a bid. Today I chose rest on purpose. You're not inflating your ego. You're feeding your RAS the evidence that keeps it scanning for similar cues tomorrow. If a day feels thin, you shrink the verbs until they fit. I breathed before replying. I set the phone down once. I named the weather and waited 90 seconds. Your nervous system doesn't require grandeur. It requires repetition. Another story from a quieter corner. Nurul is studying for a licensure exam while working retail. The store is fluorescent and loud. By night, Her brain feels like cotton. She thinks the north is a single letter on a piece of paper that seems far away. She tries the 3N loop for a week in 15-minute doses. Now, work one set of practice questions with a 4 to 4-6 breath before each. Next, schedule a Sunday study hour with a friend. North. Stand outside after the exam and feel the air cool on my cheeks while I text my brother, "I did it," so that I prove to myself I keep promises. She runs a future postcard each lunch break, sitting on a crate in the stockroom. She imagines the cool air and the text bubble. Her RAS starts tagging quiet corners and times where a 10-question set can fit. She stops seeing only the noise and starts seeing handles. Earplugs in aisle 4, a timer on her watch, a chair near the loading dock that catches late afternoon light. The paper is still far. Her identity is already close. You might feel a tug of cynicism here. Values talk can congeal into saccharine mush if it doesn't touch the floor. That's why every value becomes a verb. Every verb anchors to breath, and every breath ends in a camera-visible move inside the next 2 minutes. Your amygdala respects what you can enact. Your prefrontal cortex respects what you can repeat. Your RAS respects pictures, verbs, and completion. Feed it those, and it will return opportunities you used to miss because your museum lights were pointed elsewhere. Let your eyes rest on a wall and find 3 details you hadn't noticed. The nick by the frame, the soft gradient where shadow meets paint, the hairline scratch that tells a story you'll never know. Your attention is learning to be a curator of specifics, not a collector of alarms. The skill transfers. When a day hands you a hallway of closed doors, you'll spot the one that's cracked because the light on the floor will be half a shade different, and your filter will have been trained to notice. Identity shifts gently here. When you act your values in verbs, you stop needing to prove them with adjectives. You are not a disciplined person or a loving person in the abstract. You are the person who writes the subject line now, who asks one curious question next, who keeps a small promise north because it fits who you said you are. You become trustworthy to yourself, and that trust is the heaviest, most calming weight in your chest. You are the awareness, not the emotion. You are the compass bearer, not the wind. Tonight, try a 2-minute session. Sit on the edge of your bed and feel your feet. Name one value out loud. Translate it into one verb you can do in 60 seconds tomorrow. Picture the North postcard for 45 seconds until you can feel the air in that scene on your cheeks. Then put an object where morning you can't miss it, a card, a pen, a mug, to act as a doorway bell. In the morning, run the 3N loop once before the world sells you its emergencies. At night, speak a proof stack that your body can believe. That's the work, not fireworks, not headlines. The quiet recalibration of your filter toward what moves you forward again and again until your days rhyme with who you meant to be. Uncertainty is the mind's open field, and your old filter loves to plant weeds there. A calendar turns blank for a week, a rumor slides through a chat, a doctor says, "We'll call with results," and your chest tightens like a fist closing around a small stone. The amygdala hates unresolved patterns. Prediction error spikes. Your RAS floods you with any cue that smells like danger. You scroll for hints, read faces like tea leaves, replay old scenes to see how you might be punished for them. Meanwhile, the facts haven't changed. You're not weak for doing this. You're human. But humans can train. In this chapter, you'll teach your attention to hunt for information, not confirmation of doom. You'll borrow the best parts of scientific curiosity without the lab coat and install 2 protocols that move you from verdict to data and from vague dread to testable action. Call the first protocol the judge to scout switch. Judge is the part of you that leaps from one data point to a sentence with a period and a sentence about your character tucked right behind it. Scout is the part that walks the ridgeline and asks, what's actually here? What would change my mind? Where is the smallest path through? Your RAS obeys whichever part has the mic. When judge speaks, it fetches exhibits for a trial. When scout speaks, it fetches terrain. The switch has 3 moves you can run in a breath. You mark the moment a verdict rises. Your jaw hardens, your visual field narrows. The sentence in your head uses always or never. You run 1 4-4-6 cycle to pull blood back to the prefrontal cortex and widen your peripheral vision by a thumb's width. Then you ask 1 scout question and take 1 scout step. The questions are plain. What do I know right now? What am I assuming? What would disconfirm me? And what 2-minute probe would give me better data? The step is tiny. A ping for clarity, a check of an original source, a draft of the first line you'll need if a choice becomes real. Your RES loves steps because steps end in sensory closure. Closure tells your brain, we're doing something, which downgrades raw threat into solvable. Before you try it, anchor. Feel the cool air along your nostrils as you inhale and the faint warmth as you exhale. Notice the weight of your forearms where they meet a surface. Let your shoulders drop by a centimeter as if a coat were finding its hook. Soft eyes widen the field. Your midbrain reads that as safety. Safety gives your questions oxygen. A story from a hallway where the carpet smelled like coffee and dread. Ava is a team lead at a company whispering about reorgs. A Slack thread pops. Anyone hearing about consolidation? Her stomach drops. Judge arrives wearing a robe. Your role is dead. You failed your team. This proves you're replaceable. Her thumbs fly toward her friend's DMs to gather rumors that will confirm the verdict. She stops, hears the tritone of her own breath, and touches the doorframe. Judge to scout. She marks the verdict out loud under her breath. I'm having the thought that I'm about to be cut, and then runs the switch. What do I know? 1 vague thread. What am I assuming? That consolidation equals elimination, and that I will be in the first group. What would disconfirm me? Evidence of a different aim. Merging lines, not cutting heads. Signals of my team's retention numbers mattering. A timeline beyond rumor. What's a 2-minute probe? Ask my manager for the single decision criterion they care about and start a 1-page prep that makes our retention when visible. She writes 1 sentence. If we're optimizing for customer lifetime, here's our retention cohort versus baseline. She pings her manager with a calm question. When you have 5 minutes, what's the key lens for Q3 changes? Cost per acquisition, retention, or cycle time? The reply lands in an hour. Retention and cycle. More tomorrow. Her chest loosens by a finger's width. The next day, her page sits on the right desk. The reorg still happens. 2 teams merge. Her title changes. Her people keep their roles because the work they do touches the metric that mattered. More important, her RAS remembers that curiosity plus a small probe changed the tone in her body. The rumor didn't get to pull the fire alarm. She did a scout's job. You don't need to trust a story. Trust your senses. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect, then the nearest, the distant rumble of traffic, the whisper of your own breath. Feel the edge of your seat under your thighs and the outline of your jaw as it softens. Put the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth and notice your throat open a notch. When your body believes you have options, your questions get better. Here's why the switch works in plain science. Uncertainty lights up error detection networks and narrows perception. Your anterior cingulate flags conflict, your amygdala floods you with "act now," and your RAS starts privileging any cue consistent with your fear, because fear is energetically cheap to justify. Asking a disconfirming question is metabolically expensive at first, but the moment you take a tiny data-seeking step, reward circuits register progress. Your RAS retags the context from predator to puzzle. Puzzles are still arousing, but they return control. Repeat that loop, and you train a new reflex. When the unknown yawns open, you put down a thread of facts and walk across. Sometimes the unknown isn't about jobs or headlines. It's about someone you love and the quiet that follows a hard conversation. So you'll train a second framework that moves vague dread into something you can test. Call it the signal ladder. Imagine 5 rungs you climb in under 90 seconds. Sensation, emotion, need, option, test. You start at the body because your body is the honest narrator. Sensation is naming what is happening underneath your collarbones: tight, hot, hollow, buzzy, and where. Emotion is the label that fits the chemistry: fear, shame, anger, grief, as a weather pattern, not an identity. Need is the functional requirement under the storm: clarity, respect, safety, rest. Option is the smallest behavior that could meet 2% of that need without a grand solution. Test is the tiny move you'll run now, or the tiny question you'll ask, that tells you if that option touches the need at all. You don't need a whiteboard. You need one breath and one line. Feel for a moment. Place one hand on your sternum and the other on your belly. Inhale until the top hand rises. Exhale until the lower hand dips. Whisper the rungs in your mind with each phase. Sensation on the inhale, emotion on the pause. Need on the start of the exhale, option and test riding the rest of the air. Notice if your chest loosens a degree simply because your mind has coordinates. Coordinates calm travelers. A scene from a bedroom at midnight. Malik is waiting for a text back after a tense talk about money. The room is dark blue and loud. His chest hums, his jaw tightens, his thumb hovers over the screen, and the museum of old exhibits opens to abandonment. He runs the signal ladder. Sensation, buzzing in sternum, hot cheeks. Emotion, anxiety with a copper taste. Need, reassurance, and a plan. Option, send a clean, boundaried message that invites clarity without pleading. Test, I'm awake for 15. Can we pick a time tomorrow to finish the budget conversation? He breathes 4 to 4-6, types, and sets the phone face down outside the room. The reply doesn't arrive tonight. His chest still drops and then stabilizes. He runs the last rung again, tests the option. By acting on the plan he can control, he schedules a 15-minute block for noon titled Budget Questions. In the morning, a reply lands. Noon works. His RAS stores a stronger association. Midnight unknowns shrink when the body is named. A need is surfaced, and a testable action is taken. Sense the room you're in. Notice the pattern of light on a wall, 3 details you hadn't seen. The nick near the frame, the soft gradient where shadow meets paint, the hairline scratch that tells a story you'll never know. Feel the temperature on your cheeks and the gentle weight of fabric at your forearms. Sensory accuracy is the latter's foundation. The more precise you are with the first rung, the steadier the rest feel. You'll give the scout switch and the ladder a micro practice you can run in 2 minutes anywhere. It's the evidence. Sweep. You set a timer and speak 3 short lines out loud, each beginning with a different phrase. I know. I'm assuming. I can test by. You don't let yourself explain or argue. You let your voice carry the words because your ears are part of your learning loop. When the timer ends, you take the smallest test you named and act. A ping for a specific, a glance at a calendar, a 30-second search of a primary source instead of a thread quoting a thread. You're not trying to eliminate uncertainty. You're teaching your RAS to privilege verifiable over viral. Let your eyes soften until you can see the corners of the room. Taste the air in your mouth, coffee, mint, or nothing at all. Roll your shoulders slowly forward and back until gravity wins a millimeter. That millimeter is what you'll use to slide your attention off panic and onto a test. Uncertainty burns hottest at night, so you'll install an evening off-ramp that keeps your biology from being bait. Name it the Blue Hour Buffer. It's a short ritual you can do in 7 minutes that tells your RAS the day is closing and no new court cases will be heard. 3 moves again, all embodied. Dim is the first. You lower one light and widen your gaze to the farthest corner of the room, telling your midbrain you are not on a hunt. Drop is next. You put your phone face down in a visible bowl or on a shelf outside the bedroom. If it must stay, you set it to grayscale and do one 4-4-6 breath at the threshold. Decide is last. You whisper one sentence that closes a loop. Tomorrow at 9, I'll run the evidence sweep for the email. Or, at lunch, I'll climb the signal ladder about that comment. And then you write 3 words on a sticky note to make it real. Your RAS keeps track of unfinished stories. This gives it a bookmark. The bookmark lets you sleep. A lot of what you've learned is housed in breath and language, but here's the quiet neuroscience that supports Blue Hour. Melatonin has enemies: bright light, social complicators, and the dopamine spikes of novelty. When you dim, you stop lying to your suprachiasmatic nucleus about the sun. When you drop the bait, you stop teaching your RAS that the bed is a courtroom. When you decide and write, you give your hippocampus a clean handoff so it can do memory consolidation instead of trial reenactments. You don't need to memorize the parts. You only need to feel that your chest and jaw soften earlier in the night, and your mind stops grabbing headlines from your past. Put one palm down on a surface. Feel the texture, the cool ceramic of a mug, the grain in wood, the smooth plastic. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Whisper, close, as the air leaves. You're training your body to associate that word with the Blue Hour Buffer so you can run it even on a night when you forgot everything else. Sometimes uncertainty is an opportunity wearing fog, so you'll pair your scout habit with one more tool that makes fog an ally. Call it the hypothesis sprint. For 1 hour a week, you pick a question that could move your work or life meaningfully. You write 2 competing hypotheses in plain language, and you design the smallest test that would nudge you toward one or the other. You aren't writing a thesis, you're buying a clearer week. The sprint keeps your RAS from passively absorbing opinions and trains it to ask, what evidence would move me? Your brain respects this because you're honoring predictive coding's rule. Update when prediction meets reality. The identity shift is subtle and strong. You go from a person buffeted by uncertainty to a person who runs experiments. Experiments end in nouns you can touch, an email sent, a call scheduled, a prototype clicked, not in spirals. If a part of you rolls its eyes, experiments are for labs. Notice the old museum plaque. I don't get to ask questions, I get judged. Then run judge to scout. Name the verdict, breathe, and pick the tiniest test. Tiniest is key. Your RAS privileges, what ends? A 5-minute test that ends beats a grand plan that doesn't start. Listen for the far sound again, and then the near. Feel your feet, heel, then ball, then toes. Let your gaze widen a finger's width. The ritual is repetitive on purpose. Repetition is neuroplasticity's love language. Another story, this time from a studio that smelled like sawdust and glue. Hannah builds furniture and posted a chair that didn't sell for a month. The judge voice said, "Market hates you." She ran a hypothesis sprint over coffee. Hypothesis A, the price is too high. Hypothesis B, the photos don't show scale. She set a micro test for each, one post with a comparative silhouette next to a common object, and one direct offer to 3 previous buyers at a modest discount. She breathed, felt the mug's heat, and ran the tests. 2 days later, one buyer replied to the photo with, "Love the scale in my space, sending deposit." Another said, "Still out of range, tell me if you make a stool." The results weren't applause. They were signal. Her chest felt grounded the way it does when the floor is honest under your feet. Her RAS retagged "no sale yet" from condemnation to information. She adjusted prices, shot with scale, offered a stool in 2 weeks, and watched the fog thin. Uncertainty didn't disappear. It became a backdrop against which handles showed up. Identity lives underneath all of this. Each time you switch from judge to scout, you're telling yourself a quiet truth. I am the awareness that asks, not the emotion that declares. Each time you climb the signal ladder, you are saying, I am the person who can name the storm and still find a rung. Each time you run Blue Hour, you are practicing, I end my day. My mind is not a courtroom. Each time you sprint a hypothesis, you are proving, I update with evidence, my worth is not on trial. Those identity lines are not affirmations pasted over anxiety. They are accurate summaries of behavior you just did. Your body believes what you repeat. Taste the air in your mouth again, the ghost of coffee or nothing at all. Feel the back of your ribs against the chair and the subtle warmth where your forearms touch a surface. Let your shoulders fall another millimeter, gravity winning gently. Imagine your attention as a beam that can tilt. In uncertainty, the old tilt points to threat. The new tilt points to a door you can touch in 2 minutes. You're teaching that beam to pivot. Tonight, you'll try a pocket routine. When the unknown pricks your skin, a late email, a long pause, a scan result pending, you'll whisper, Scout, run 1 4-4-6 breath, and ask, what would change my mind? You'll climb one rung of the ladder by naming sensation precisely, then take one test you can end. If it's late, you'll run Blue Hour with 1 light and 1 sticky note. When you wake, you'll spend a minute on an evidence sweep before your feeds write your frame. If a rumor shouts, you'll ask for the lens it cares about, not the gossip it carries. And if you stumble, you'll note the stumble with 1 red dot and whisper, next time I'll ask for the decision criterion first. Rest your palm on the nearest frame, door, laptop, notebook, and feel its temperature. On your inhale, say, no. On your pause, say, assume. On your exhale, say, test. That sequence is a rope you can throw across any fog. You don't need the fog to clear to move. You need one knot to hold. You are not trying to become a person who never worries. You are becoming the person who scouts. You are not the verdict. You are the mapmaker. You are not the rumor. You are the one who asks the right person the right smallest question. You are the awareness, not the emotion, and your awareness has learned to carry a compass that fits in a breath. Tomorrow, practice it once when it's small so you can trust it when it's large. Every time you do, the bouncer at your attention's door becomes less interested in sirens and more interested in signs. Signs are how lives move forward. Confidence is not a gift you wait to receive. It's a loop you run until your body believes you. You've learned to scout, to tag values with verbs, to surf waves of energy. Now you'll build something deeper. Self-trust, sturdy enough that your RAS stops scanning for permission and starts scanning for chances. When self-trust is thin, every room feels like a test you're about to fail. When it's thick, your attention relaxes and looks for handles, allies, and timing. This chapter gives you 2 protocols that compound proof quietly. One for banking trust every day, and one for rehearsing high-stakes moments so your body carries memory into the room before your doubts do. Call the first protocol the self-trust ledger. It's the simplest accounting system you'll ever keep, but it rewires identity faster than any peppy talk. Each day you make 3 micro-promises that fit inside 2 minutes apiece. One is to your body, one is to your craft, one is to your relationships. You write them in a single line each morning, and you mark them complete with a physical stroke in the evening. The trick is scale. 2 minutes is small enough that your amygdala can't claim risk, and specific enough that your RAS can fetch cues. Body, 2 rounds of 4-4-6 before lunch. Craft, draft a subject line for the pitch. Relationships, send 1 generous note. Each completed stroke becomes a notch in the ledger. Your brain counts notches. After 10 days, you don't just think you're reliable. Your nervous system can point to proof. The ledger feeds a bias you want. Your RAS starts tagging moments where you can keep small promises because it expects the satisfaction that follows. Anchor before you write the first line. Feel the back of your ribs supported by the chair. Notice the coolness along your nostrils on the inhale and the faint warmth on the exhale. Let your shoulders fall a centimeter, as if a coat were finding its hook. With the next breath, whisper body, craft, relationships in your mind. 1 on the inhale, 1 on the pause, 1 on the exhale. The words ride the air, and your chest loosens a degree. That loosening is your vagus nerve telling your prefrontal cortex there's room to choose, a story from a week that could have gone either way. Renata, a new team lead, kept promising herself big swings. I'll overhaul the roadmap tonight. I'll run 5 miles. I'll call 3 friends. She kept breaking those promises, and her chest felt hollow by Thursday, the kind of hollowness that makes you over-explain in meetings. She tried the self-trust ledger. Monday, body, 2 slow breaths before I type. Craft, write the first slide title. Relationships, text 1 line to Sam, proud of your presentation. She checked all 3, felt almost silly, and slept heavier. Tuesday, she repeated the pattern. By Friday, the ledger had 10 clean strokes. She didn't brag. Her jaw just stopped clenching. In the next review, she spoke 1 sentence shorter than usual and asked 1 precise question. Her RAS, fed 5 days of completion, assumed she would do what she said. That assumption is the quiet engine of confidence, not I'm great, but I keep promises my body can recognize. Your brain's bookkeeping is old and efficient. The basal ganglia reward closure with a small dopamine pulse. The hippocampus pins context to success. The RAS updates its guest list to include any cue that rhymes with previous closures. You are not tricking yourself. You are putting simple math on your side. Let your senses widen. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect, then the nearest, the distant car, the whisper of your own breath. Feel the texture under your fingertips, the mug's rim, the paper's tooth, the cool of a knob. Soft eyes bring back the edges of the room. Edges tell your midbrain, we're not trapped. Now you'll prepare for arenas where self-trust is hardest to hold. Interviews, crucial conversations, presentations, medical appointments, performances, meetings where power tilts the floor. Call this second protocol the preload playbook. You will preload your RES with a compact script that links your values to a few camera-visible moves and then rehearse them in the actual doorway where they'll be used. The playbook has 5 beats: aim, triggers, language, actions, soothe, remembered by the acronym ATLAS. Aim is one sentence of purpose you can say under your breath. Triggers are the 2 cues that usually hook you: tone, interruption, silence. Language is your first sentence and one boundary line you'll use. Actions are the smallest wise moves you'll take when energy spikes. Ask a question, write a number, sip water, pause. Soothe is the body reset you'll use to keep blood in your prefrontal cortex, 4-4-6, horizon eyes, palm down cue. You write ATLAS on a card, walk to the actual threshold you'll cross, place your palm on the frame, and run the beats with 1 breath per line. Context-dependent memory is on your side. Your brain recalls better in the same kind of doorway where the memory was formed. You're not memorizing a speech. You're laying down a map your body can follow, even if your thoughts get loud. Feel the nearest frame, wood or metal or plastic, cool or warm, smooth or grain. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Whisper, aim on the inhale, triggers on the hold, language, actions, soothe on the exhale like stepping stones. Notice your jaw loosen a notch when the words move with the breath. That loosening is a sign your RAS is opening the file you'll want later. A story from a morning that smelled like dry markers and fear. Noor had to present a proposal to a prickly VP who loved to interrupt. Her body knew the pattern. Heat rising up the neck, tongue going dry, old exhibit titled, "You Don't Belong," switching on its theater lights. She built a preload playbook the day before. Aim. Frame the problem in plain language and ask for the next smallest trial. Triggers. Interruption at slide 2. Silence after the ask. Language. First sentence. Here's the friction in 1 line and the smallest test that reduces it by half. Boundary. Give me 30 seconds, then I'll take your questions. Actions. Point to the number once, then ask, does this definition match what you're seeing? Soothe. Horizon eyes at the back wall if heart rate spikes, palm down cue on the table. She stood in the hallway outside the conference room at dusk and ran ATLAS twice with her hand on the frame. The next day, interruption arrived on cue. She lifted a hand and used the boundary sentence she had already said in the doorway. The VP smirked, then let her finish. Silence followed the ask. Noor used soothe, eyes to horizon, 1446, then a calm, what would make this test worth a week of runway? The VP asked for a tweak and gave a date. Noor walked out lightheaded and then heavy in a satisfying way, like after a good set of squats. Her RAS had nothing to panic about. It was too busy following a map it already knew. Sprinkle science that matters. State-dependent learning ties your body state to recall. Context cues prime the RAS to pull the right file. Emotionally charged imagery, the doorway, the hand on wood, the back wall, increases retrieval. When you rehearse in place with breath, you're loading your nervous system with exactly the ingredients it will need on the day. Preload is not superstition. It's kind engineering. Return to your body. Taste the air in your mouth. Coffee, mint, or nothing at all. Notice the pressure of your feet on the floor. Heels, then balls, then toes. Soften your gaze until your peripheral vision widens by a thumb's width. Your field of view literally changes the conversation between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex. Wide eyes say, there's space. Space invites choice. To keep Atlas nimble, you add a micro drill called 2-minute stagecraft. Before any high-stakes moment, you take 120 seconds to set 3 small physical cues. You place a cup where your hand can find it without looking. You decide where your eyes will rest when you need horizon. You write your opening sentence on the top corner of your notes in 7 words or fewer. This is not theater for others. It's theater for your own nervous system. The fewer micro-decisions you make in the heat, the more your RAS can keep scanning for useful signals instead of defending against imagined slights. Here's where ledger and preload braid into something sturdier than either alone. The ledger builds a daily hum of, I do what I say. Preload gives your body a practiced path for the hour that matters. Together, they create what I call the confidence gradient. It's the slope your attention slides down toward steady, even when the room tilts. A gradient keeps water flowing. Yours keeps panic from pooling. You don't need to feel fearless. You need a slope that carries you into your first sentence and your smallest wise action. That's enough to tag the room as navigable. Listen for the far sound, traffic maybe, or a bird through glass, and then the whisper of your own breath. Feel the fabric at your wrists and the temperature along your cheeks. Place a palm down on your thigh. That palm down cue says to your body, no one is on trial. We're here to do the next true thing. Because life loves to test your systems the moment you're tired. Build a rescue variation called the 90-second confidence cache. It's a pocket routine you run when your chest turns to static. You open your notes and read 3 lines you wrote on a good day. 1 ledger proof. Today, I kept a 2-minute promise. 1 Atlas win. I used my boundary sentence. 1 identity sentence you earned. I am the person who chooses a first sentence. You breathe 4-4-6 once while touching a frame. The cache isn't a pep rally. It's a small deposit of remembered evidence, so your RAS has fresh tags to fetch when your mind tries to empty the account. Another scene, this time outside work where scripts fall apart. Theo promised himself he'd have a calm talk with his mother about borrowing money. Old pattern, he walks in tense. She says, you never call. He defends. Everything tilts. He ran ledger all week. Body, walk after dinner. Craft, 1 sentence about numbers, relationships. Sent his sister a generous note. The self-trust hum was there. For preload, he wrote Atlas on a note card. Aim, make a plan that doesn't burn the bridge. Triggers, guilt sentence, sigh, language. First, I want to help without resentments. Can we look at months, not days? Boundary, I can't do immediate transfers. I can do a scheduled amount by the 1st. Actions, sit at the table, write numbers, ask for a co-created cap. Soothe, Horizon eyes at the kitchen window, palm down on the table. He stood at the apartment door, felt the wood, ran the beats. Inside, the guilt sentence arrived. He felt heat in his cheeks. He used the boundary sentence that his hand had already felt in the doorway. They drew numbers on an envelope. No movie ending, no explosion. He left with a plan and a chest that felt like it had a weight in the center, not a hole. The ledger grew a stroke that night. Kept the boundary. Identity thickened where it matters. I am the person who is kind and clear. You might hear a cynic whisper that this is over-controlled, that real confidence is effortless. Notice the museum plaque. If it's good, it's natural. Then breathe and look around. Watch any craftsperson. Watch a nurse set up a room, a musician lay out a set list, a pilot run a checklist, a teacher arrange desks. Confidence that lasts is engineered. There's room for surprise and play inside a well-built frame. Your RAS loves frames. With one, it stops hunting for exits and starts hunting for signals that help the mission. Feel your feet. Press them into the floor for 3 seconds. Then release. Roll your shoulders forward and back, slow, until gravity wins a millimeter. Let your eyes find a surface and pick out 3 details you hadn't noticed. The nick in the paint, the tiny reflection in glass, the curve of a shadow. Sensory precision is the quiet twin of confidence. When you can describe the room, you can move inside it. Because setbacks still sting, you'll fuse error alchemy from earlier with ledger and atlas in a routine called the Confidence T loop. T stands for tag. When you miss, voice shook, boundary wobbled, you draw a red dot, run flag frame fix, and then add a tiny tag to tomorrow's preload. Tag, sip water before slide 2. The tag threads the fix into the next map. The loop keeps you from turning a wobble into a verdict. Your RAS loves loops. They promise a next time worth showing up for. Another pocket practice will deepen the slope, the 2-minute win window. After any high-stakes scene, you stand in a literal window or at a doorway, and let your body register one specific thing you did that matched your aim. You say it aloud. I asked the smallest question. I set the boundary in 7 words. You feel 5 seconds of warmth in your chest like sunlight on your forearms. Then you write 1 line in your ledger. The window is not vanity. It's consolidation. Without it, the brain forgets wins faster than losses. With it, your RAS becomes a fair archivist. Here's a technical reminder to justify your kindness to yourself. Negativity bias weights errors more heavily because it kept your ancestors alive. To correct the bias, you don't deny misses. You wait successes long enough for synapses to take the hint. 5 seconds isn't random. It's about how long it takes for reward circuits to mark an experience as tag-worthy. Practice the window and your tags get sticky. Let your jaw unclench so your tongue can rest against the roof of your mouth. Taste the faint flavor of whatever lingers. Notice the warmth under your forearms where they meet a surface. Place your palm down and feel the texture again. These tiny choices are the sand that makes the concrete of confidence set. If you want to see the arc you're building, write this identity sentence where you'll trip over it. I am the person who keeps 2-minute promises and carries a map into hard rooms. Say it once while walking through a doorway. Say it again after your next ledger stroke. Identity formed this way is quiet, sturdy, and contagious. Others relax around a person who keeps small promises. Rooms change when one person arrives with a first sentence and a gentle boundary already loaded. A final story. because the world rarely honors our timing. Lila, a midwife, got a call on a night she hadn't slept well. Old Lila would white-knuckle the shift and then crack, either into tears in the car or into a snap at a colleague. Ledger in place, she still felt fear. She ran a stripped atlas in the hospital doorway. Aim. Be steady, clear, kind for the next hour. Triggers, alarm tones, someone else's panic. Language. First, here's what we're doing in the next 2 minutes. Boundary. One voice at a time. Actions. Name rolls out loud. Ask one question. Check monitors. Soothe. Horizon eyes at the clock. Palm down on the rail. The hour was hard. A machine beeped like a woodpecker. Someone cried. She used her boundary line twice and soothed 3 times. In a corridor that smelled like antiseptic and coffee, a colleague said, "You were a wall in a storm." On her break, Lila stood by a window, felt the night air leak cold around the frame, and said, "I kept the map." The ledger got its smallest, most valuable stroke. Take one slow inhale, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Let your gaze widen until you can see the corners of the room. Ask yourself the next humble question. What 2-minute promises will I write in my self-trust ledger tomorrow, and which doorway will I use to run Atlas once before the stakes rise? Then picture the win window you'll stand at afterward. Ordinary, repeatable, body felt. This is how confidence stops being a mood and becomes a gradient. You are the awareness, not the emotion. You are the person who lays tracks the train can run on when the lights flicker. Your RAS will learn the route. It will start scanning for the cues that match who you decided to be. There are days when all your careful systems feel like paper boats in a storm. A text hits at 3:07 a.m. A plan implodes at noon. A voice you trust shifts tone and your stomach turns to static. You can't find your breath. Your mouth tastes metallic. Your field of vision narrows until the room becomes a tunnel. The old museum opens every wing at once. This proves you can't handle it. This proves you were foolish to hope. Here is where your RAS wants to fixate on sirens again. This chapter is about what to do when the grid goes down, how to keep a tiny light on, how to move 2 minutes at a time, how to turn the first avalanche of chemicals into traction instead of a landslide. You won't make the storm pretty, you'll make it passable. Call your first protocol the blackout protocol. Think of it as BGG, ground, gather, guide. Ground means you bring your nervous system back inside the body on purpose. You sit or stand and place a palm on something undeniably real, a door frame, a table edge, your own forearm, and you run 2 rounds of 4-4-6 while widening your gaze to the farthest corner you can see. That combination, touch, breath, horizon, tells your vagus nerve to invite your prefrontal cortex back into the room. Gather means you collect 3 pieces of hard data and 1 ally. Hard data is anything a camera would record. The timestamp on the message, the status page, the calendar line, the exact sentence you just heard. An ally is the person or note or checklist that reminds you you're not alone, a teammate on call, a script you wrote, a card on your desk that says, "Slow is smooth, smooth is kind." Guide means you narrate the next 2 minutes out loud or under your breath, ending with a verb your body can perform now. I will pull the status page. I will write 1 sentence to the channel. I will open the checklist. Your RAS, fed a verb in your own voice, begins to scan for cues that support that verb rather than for proof that you are doomed. Feel the air at your nostrils, cooler on the inhale, warmer on the exhale. Notice the texture under your fingertips, grain, ceramic, plastic. Let your shoulders drop a finger's width, the way a coat settles into a hook. Those sensations are not decoration. They are jumper cables. A story from a Wednesday that smelled like stale coffee and burnt dust. Santi, an ops lead, woke to 5 missed calls. The app was glitching for a third of users, and a client had tagged executives in a public thread. His chest flooded, and his tongue went dry. The museum opened to exhibits titled, "You Always Miss the One Thing That Matters." He stumbled to his desk, touched the desk edge until he felt wood, and ran BGG. Ground. 2, 4, 4, 6 breaths, eyes to the far corner where the plant caught a strip of streetlight. Gather. Timestamp, error code, on-call roster, a physical checklist he had printed for outages. Guide. He whispered, status, page first, then a one-line acknowledgement. 90 seconds later, he posted, "We're investigating the 502s. Next update in 5. The public pace didn't solve the bug. It solved the panic. His RAS, now working for him, tagged the handle in the noise. A deploy 2 minutes prior. He looped in the engineer. They rolled back. At sunrise, the thread had calmed. Santi's chest was heavy, but in the good way, like after carrying a box down a flight of stairs. That weight became a new exhibit. Under pressure, you can ground, gather, guide. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect. A truck, a bird through glass, then the nearest, the brush of your own breath. Sense the edge of your seat under your thighs. Let your jaw unclench so the tip of your tongue can rest against the roof of your mouth. Softness isn't weakness here. It's the lever that pries your attention out of the alarm. Your second framework meets the moment after the storm, when the adrenaline drains and the critic arrives with a clipboard. Name it the compassion audit. You walk through 3 lenses in order: body, facts, frame, and you speak each in one plain sentence. Body comes first because chemistry drives stories. You say, "My forearms are heavy and my eyes burn. I need water and 10 quiet breaths." Facts come next. You say, "Here is what happened that a camera would see," and you stop yourself from adjectives. Frame last. You say, "The teachable cause was X, not my worth. The next 2-minute fix is Y." The brain science is boring and beautiful. When you label physical state, the amygdala quiets. When you describe facts, the anterior cingulate stops flagging conflict. When you choose a next verb, reward circuits prepare to release on completion. The audit is not indulgence. It is how professionals reroute shame into stewardship. Taste the air in your mouth, coffee, toothpaste, nothing. Let your eyes soften until your peripheral vision widens a thumb's width. Press your feet into the ground for 3 seconds and release. Your body votes first. Make sure it votes yes to your next move. There's a pocket version of the blackout protocol. You can run when you can't leave the room. Call it the micro generator. It is a single sentence. You pair with 1 breath. Name the weather, name 1 fact, name 1 move. You whisper, "Anxiety squall, it's 12:14. Ask for the decision criterion." And you breathe. That sentence pulls the RAS out of abstraction and into traction. You'll also build a fail-safe that turns relapses into reps instead of self-indictments. Call it the ritual restart. Whenever you notice you've gone a day or a week without your tools, you resist the courtroom and run a 4-step re-entry that fits inside 3 minutes. You step to the nearest threshold, place your palm on the frame, and breathe 4-4-6 once. You speak 1 identity sentence you've earned, not the one you wish were true. I am the person who chooses a first sentence. You perform 1 micro promise 2 sips of water, 1 kind note, 1 subject line, and you write a single RAS receipt. This is not a ceremony, it's a fuse. The fastest way back into the life you were building is 1 completed verb that your body can recognize. Feel the temperature along your cheeks and the warm weight under your forearms where they meet a surface. Hear the fabric rustle as your rib cage moves. The more precisely you can sense, the less oxygen there is for vague catastrophe. A home scene makes this concrete. Karima had planned a gentle evening, phone in the bowl, doorway reset before dinner, proof stack after. Then her sister called with a frantic update about a parent's test results. The call stretched. Worry poured through the apartment like smoke. Old Karima would have doom-scrolled until 2 a.m. New Karima ran the micro-generator while leaning on the kitchen counter. Fear wave, appointment is Friday, write 2 questions for the doctor. She jotted the questions, then ran the compassion audit. My shoulders are hard. I need tea and a long exhale. The fact, results are pending. The frame, plan questions and rest. She put the phone on grayscale and walked her phone to the bowl. It wasn't noble, it was enough. When she lay down, she placed a hand on her sternum, felt the rise under her palm and whispered, "Close." Her RAS added a tiny tag. When fear is loud, we plan and rest. In the morning, she woke with a little room in her chest and used that room to love someone better. Here's the science bridge that will keep you from second-guessing kindness. Under shock, your amygdala narrows perception and steals blood from your planning circuits. Vagal maneuvers, long exhale, horizon eyes, palm down touch, reverse the flow just enough for choice to return. The RAS tunes to your questions. If you ask for handles, it will find handles. Neuroplasticity means repetition wires faster. 2-minute wins with a 5-second saver become the grooves your attention slips into by default when the next siren wails. Stand if you can and shift your weight from foot to foot. Feel the floor not moving. Roll your shoulders forward and back, slow. Let the exhale lengthen until your belly draws in a little. Those small movements tell your midbrain, we are not prey. Because some storms are social, you'll add a tool that keeps conflict from becoming a flood. It's the rupture repair rail. The rail has 3 grips, own, offer, ask, and you can hold them even when your chest is tight. You say a single owning sentence that a camera would confirm. I cut you off when you were halfway through. You offer warmth. I care about your point. And you ask for the smallest next piece. Can you say the last sentence again? Your RAS, used to litigating, learns to build a bridge in 7 seconds. You don't need to fix history in a moment. You need to give the moment a rail. Listen for the far sound again, then the near. Let your gaze rest on a plain surface and pick out 3 details you hadn't noticed. The nick in the paint, the faint gradient, the hairline scratch. Detail is a solvent for panic's glue. One more protocol equips you for the seasons that aren't crises but feel like a steady gray weight. The dull weather plan. Gray days don't trigger alarms, they drain batteries. You run the 2-2-2, 2 minutes of body care, 2 minutes of craft, 2 minutes of connection. All before noon, 2 stretches or a walk to the window, 2 sentences or a subject line, 2 lines to someone you respect without an angle. On gray days, your RAS will not volunteer. You lead. When it sees your hand move anyway, it remembers. The point is not heroism, it's continuity. You want identity to survive low pressure. A short scene from a quiet Saturday. Jun had a list and a fog. He wanted to clean and to write and to call his aunt. The fog made every move taste like cardboard. He ran 2-2-2 without announcing it to himself. He did 10 slow breaths while his hands touched cool porcelain at the sink. He wrote the first sentence that began a paragraph. He sent a voice note that said, "I was thinking of the way you laugh when you tell the story about the yellow umbrella." He felt nothing dramatic. He did feel the floor return by a millimeter. He wrote a line on a card. Gray day, 2-2-2 done. That millimeter became the ledge he used to climb out of the afternoon. There is a voice that will mock all of this when you're tired. It will say, "This is small. Small doesn't count." Recognize the voice as a nervous system defending the familiar. You do not argue. You run the ritual restart and complete one verb. The brain pays its deepest respect to completion. The RAS copies what it sees. You repeat. Taste the air again. Notice the warmth in your hands if you rub your palms together. Place your palm down on your thigh. That palm down cue anchors the sentence you're about to say. You are the awareness, not the emotion. You do not need the storm to approve of your tools. You need to use one tool until you feel the slightest shift in your ribs, the evidence that choice returned. One last story, because grief is a different kind of weather. Mateo's grandmother died in another country. Flights were a tangle. The house felt underwater. He didn't want optimism. He wanted to not drown. He picked 3 tools that don't insult pain: the 90-second weather rule, the blackout protocol, and the compassion audit. He watched waves crest and fall without giving them the microphone. He used ground, gather, guide to get 3 tasks done each morning: documents, calls, packing, before surrendering to the ocean of family. At night, he ran the audit and said, "My eyes burn, I need water." The fact, we booked the flight. The frame, grief is not a problem to solve. The next 2 minutes are to set out clothes. There was no bow. There was a bed. When he returned, he found that the tools had not cured pain. They had given him a spine. His RAS did not chase sirens for weeks afterwards. It looked for handles because that's what he had trained it to do when pain was loudest. Identity shifts in storms, not by epiphany, but by fidelity. You become the person who keeps one small promise while the room shakes. You become the person who can say, "Anxiety squall. It's 12:14. Ask one question, even when your throat is sand." You become the person who owns 10 words, offers warmth in 10 more, and asks for the next true sentence. You are a steward under weather, not its critic, not its victim. Your attention is a beam. You keep tilting it toward what moves you forward. Feel your feet root. Let your shoulders drop until gravity wins a millimeter. Lift your gaze to the horizon, the doorway edge, the far wall, and breathe once more, longer on the exhale. Whisper, ground, gather, guide, and let your hand find a frame. Tomorrow will have its own texture. You will have a fuse ready. When the grid goes down, you will light one small circuit, then another, until the room shows you its handles again. Integration is not a victory parade. It's the morning after, when the confetti has been swept and you still keep your word. You've trained a different lens. You've turned storms into laboratories, and your RAS now hunts for handles instead of headlines. This last chapter gives you the blueprint for making the shift durable, portable, and shareable. You'll seal the gains in your nervous system, stage-proof the tools for strange rooms, and choose a gentle ambition that keeps you growing without turning your life into an endless exam. Think of this as installing handrails you'll forget are there until a foot slips, and then you'll grab, steady, and continue. Call your first framework the integration spiral. Everything you've learned fits on this spiral so your attention knows where to stand. It has 4 predictable turns you run in sequence: prime, play, proof, plant. Prime means you set the day's lens in under 60 seconds. RTR tags on the breath, 1 doorway reset, 1 North Star verb. Play means you treat the next scene like a lab. Run 1 protocol: triangle, wave, bid radar, bridge, switchboard, whatever fits. And let it be clumsy. Proof means you speak 1 clean line of what worked in camera language and savor it for 5 seconds, so your RAS tags it. Plant means you place that line where tomorrow you will trip over it. Receipts, ledger, a card by a doorway, so the spiral begins again without effort. Prime, play, proof, plant. The sequence is small enough to live inside a Tuesday and strong enough to bend a month. Feel the back of your ribs against the chair. Notice the film of cool air along your nostrils on the inhale and the faint warmth on the exhale. Let your shoulders drop a finger's width as if a coat found its hook. That's prime in miniature: breath, word, angle. The room softens when you do. Your second framework is how you carry this into rooms you don't control. Name it the field kit. It has 3 pockets: core, crisis, compass, and you can pack them in under 2 minutes. Core is the ordinary day: RTR, 1 window, choice chain, proof stack. Crisis is the blackout: BGG on a loop, the micro-generator sentence, the compassion audit after the wave. Compass is meaning: North Star verbs, now next north, a future postcard you can run with your eyes half closed on a bus. You don't lug the whole library. You pocket these 3 cards. When the venue changes, airport, courtroom, hospital, boardroom, the cards don't. Your body recognizes the shapes. Your RAS recognizes the verbs. You've turned survival gear into everyday attire. Listen for the farthest sound you can detect, then the nearest, the low truck, the whisper of your own breath. Feel the texture beneath your fingertips, the mug's rim, the paper's tooth. Sensory honesty is the lock that keeps the kit shut until you need it and opens it quickly when you do. A story to prove this is not theory. Mara used to begin days like a chase. Her museum was curated by urgency. Her shoulder blades lived near her ears. After a month of training, she ran integration spiral on a Monday she used to dread, the quarterly review, plus a doctor appointment, plus dinner with her brother, who likes jabs disguised as jokes. Prime, she wrote steady, curious, clear in her notes and breathed them onto a 4-4-6. At the review, play, she used the perspective triangle when a number came in low. She said her first sentence slow. Proof, asked for decision criterion first. Plant, she dropped that line into her receipts app. At the clinic, her chest tightened on the metallic taste of the word scan. She pulled the crisis pocket from the field kit, hand on the frame. BGG in a breath. Ground on the armrest, gather the exact time and nurse's name, guide with ask 2 questions. Proof, ran micro-generator, got timeline. Plant, a small note on the appointment card. Dinner was the old trap. Her brother riffed on her job title. She felt the heat rise. She opened the compass pocket. I value connection and clarity. The first sentence is, 1 story at a time. I'm telling mine now. Play, boundary bridge in 1 breath, palm down voice. He grinned, then listened. Proof, line held without spike. Plant, 1 line in the ledger before bed. By midnight, she wasn't glowing. She was heavier in the chest in a satisfying way, like gravel poured into a footing. Integration isn't fireworks, it's footing. Taste the air in your mouth, coffee or mint or nothing at all. Let your eyes soften until your peripheral vision widens by a thumb's width and the corners of the room return. Your midbrain reads wide eyes as safety. Safety returns choice. Choice keeps you kind. Because long-term change depends on friction, you'll add an accelerator that keeps the spiral honest when life is smooth. It's the edge appointment. Once a week, you schedule a 20-minute session with something that raises your heart rate in a good way, a conversation you tend to avoid, a cold outreach, a skill lab. You run Atlas at a doorway before you start, then the 2-minute win window after. You're not chasing adrenaline, you're dosing it on purpose so your RAS keeps associating edge with handle and not with doom. Over time, the room you fear most will begin to feel like just another room with a door frame you recognize. Feel your feet find the floor, heels, balls, toes. Press down for 3 seconds and release. Roll your shoulders forward and back, slow, until gravity wins a millimeter. Those tiny votes from the body keep your promises from floating away. There is one last practice that seals identity into behavior, so you don't have to remember who you are when the day is loud. Call it the Identity Lock-In Trio. It's quiet and specific. A name, a nudge, a note. Name is the sentence you earned and keep earning. I am the person who chooses a first sentence. I am the person who keeps 2-minute promises. I am the person who scouts. You say it while your palm touches a frame, so your skin marks it. Nudge is the micro-promise that fits the next 2 minutes. Breath cycle. Subject line. One generous note. Note is the shortest receipt you can write, 4 or 5 words, so your ledger doesn't depend on memory. Name, nudge, note. 3 breaths, 3 seconds, 3 lines. Your RAS loves that you kept it human scale. It repays you with more cues that rhyme. A capstone scene, because you deserve to feel the arc. A month from now, you walk into a room that used to steal your air, a performance review, a family negotiation, a meeting where a title in the room makes people small. Your body still flinches. That's biology, not failure. You run Atlas at the threshold without making a show of it. You lower your shoulders and place a palm on the back of a chair. Your first sentence lands with 7 words or fewer. In the middle, when heat rises, you watch the weather for 90 seconds and ask one precise question rather than deliver a defense. When someone lobs a jab, you scan for a bid and you turn toward without abandoning yourself. If you wobble, you draw a red dot and whisper, "Next time, while you sip water." When it ends, you stand by a window, speak one proof line aloud, feel warmth under your sternum for 5 seconds, jot a receipt, and leave. Outside, traffic is ordinary. Your jaw is not tight. Your chest carries a pleasant weight. That weight is trust in your breath, in your first sentences, in your capacity to look for handles and find them. You didn't hypnotize yourself. You trained. Listen for the far sound, then the near. Notice the lamplight pooling on a surface and the tiny shadow a cup casts. Let your attention rest there for a moment, on details you used to miss because your museum was full of alarms. Your filter has changed. It hasn't become naive. It has become useful. Because you will forget, because everyone forgets. Build one last safety, the sanctuary room return. When a week goes sideways and the ledger goes blank and your phone colonizes your nights, you pick one evening to sweep the room back into your favor in 15 minutes. You put the news back on the second screen. You place the bowl for devices by the door. You lay a pen and a card on the table with your 3 tags. You dim one light and run blue hour with one sticky note. You are not reclaiming a palace. You are returning to a clean workbench. A workbench invites craft. Craft makes the next day kinder. Taste the air again. Feel the temperature along your cheeks. Put the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth and notice your throat open a notch. That notch is the space where decisions slip through instead of getting stuck. If you want a number to satisfy the part of you that loves scoreboards, choose a nudge count for the next 30 days. One micro promise to your body, one to your craft, one to your relationships, daily. No catch-up, no extra credit. 30 days of nudge counts will recalibrate your RAS more thoroughly than 12 hours of motivation ever could, because repetition is the only language synapses cannot ignore. A final story, an echo of the first. On a crowded train, your phone buzzes and your stomach drops. Sirens flicker. Once upon a time, you would have grabbed at them. Today, you anchor. Breath 4-4-6. Soft eyes. Name the thought as a thought. Ask, what is one cue that moves me forward? You notice a completed task in your notes. You send one precise sentence. You put the phone face down. Then you see it. The soft light on the building's windows. The child laughing 3 seats ahead. The subtle pride of being on time. Your mouth lifts. Not because you forced it, but because your filter tagged wonder as relevant again. The bouncer at the door of your attention is reading a guest list you wrote this morning, and you can feel it in your chest. Feel your feet. Feel the weight of your clothing. Hear the nearest sound, maybe the whisper of your own breath. Whisper the identity you've earned. I am the awareness, not the emotion. I am the curator, not the exhibits. I am the person who chooses a first sentence, looks for a handle, and keeps 2-minute promises. You do not need permission for this. You have proof. You gave it to yourself one small move at a time. Tomorrow will be ordinary, which is perfect. Ordinary is where your training lives. You will prime with 3 words on the breath. You will play one protocol in a real scene. You will speak one proof line and plant it for tomorrow. Spiral once, twice, 100 times. The world will still shout. The news will still glare. Storms will still roll. But you will meet them trained. Your RAS will notice what moves you forward. Your life will tilt that way, quietly and irresistibly, like a sunflower turning its face to a steadier light.